This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, thank you for joining. Today we are on day 2. Okay, so yesterday we started discussing about the cloud definition and the very basic definition given by Microsoft about cloud is delivering of computing services over the internet or over the network, right? That is what they call it as cloud definition. We went through that and then we talked about benefits of cloud. So these are the 6 important points that we discussed yesterday, but there are a lot of other points that we can continue to discuss. For example, like we talked about high availability, scalability, and definitely there is a lot of reliability in the cloud. If the service goes down in one region, automatically your application can continue to run on a different region. So you have a lot of reliability, and also in terms of cost, you know how much you are going to be charged, and also you can expect the performance. So even the predictability of both cost and performance is very much high in the cloud. So these are all some more additional points that we discussed, and we also have to discuss about security and governance. I'll talk about that today. And also we talked about the cost aspect, how much we are saving the cost when you are maintaining your own on premises, how much is the cost that we have, and what are the different things that we get as a shared expenditure, right? And there were some questions, and based on that question I explained a few points here, so you don't have to really worry about that now. We'll discuss that later as well. Okay, for now, these are the important things that you should be aware of. You need to be aware of the definition. You need to be aware of the top 6 benefits of why we are choosing cloud. And we started discussing about the different service model. So when it comes to cloud, there are 3 different service model: infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and then software as a service. So these 3 models are differentiated by differentiating who manages what. So if the provider is managing the infrastructure, then that is why we call it as infrastructure as a service. So they are managing your physical data center as well as the infrastructure that is there, the server, storage, and networking. So that's why they call it as infrastructure as a service. Any problem that arises in the server or storage or networking, they will replace the failed disk, they will replace the failed hardware, they will do the firmware upgrade, iOS upgrade, and all those stuff. So the provider manages and maintains the infrastructure, and they are the one who are servicing the component that are on the infrastructure side. That is why we call it as infrastructure as a service. So this is the most common model. So whenever you want to do a kind of lift and shift, when I say lift and shift, if you want to move a server from on premises to cloud, if you have a server in your data center and you want to move that virtual machine to Azure platform, Azure data center, generally we go and do a rehosting. That is what we call it as lift and shift or rehosting. So most of the servers that are coming here will be a lift and shift approach, because like we have control on the virtual machine OS here. So let me just change this. So this is one of the regular use case that you will see. And also if you want to do some development or testing, most of the servers that we create will be on the infrastructure as a service. We go and create a virtual machine and we go and try and do a development and testing there. So rehosting is very common in infrastructure as a service. And in infrastructure as a service, as a customer, we are the one who need to take care of the operating system. So operating system access is available only for the customer. So we need to do the patching, upgrade, monitoring, backup, and all those stuff, not just for the operating system, even for the middleware database. And if you have HIS or MQ or any other middleware integration product, or if you have some runtime like .NET or IIS, or if you have some middleware or database or runtime, so all those in between our integration components are also managed and maintained by the customer. So we take care of all these aspects in infrastructure as a service. In infrastructure as a service, customer has got a lot of things to do. Okay, whereas when it comes to platform as a service, you are responsible only for the application and data, especially on the cloud side. You should also be managing what kind of client devices that is allowed to connect, what kind of PC can connect, and what kind of laptops, desktops, mobile devices that can connect is again under the control of the customer. Okay, in platform as a service, even the platform that you need to run your application. For example, you might have developed the application with .NET code or Python code or whatever Java or whatever application that your business application is compatible with. And for that particular application, you go and get the runtime from Microsoft, not just the runtime, including the operating system like Linux or Windows. So when you want to run a particular application in platform as a service, so the provider will provide infrastructure as well as the platform. When you say platform, the OS, the database, the runtime, everything will be provided as a package. It will be readily available. So here, as a customer, you don't have to really do a lot of things here. You just have to do development of your application. The application code will be made ready by the customer, and you have to ensure that your data is securely stored and managed and maintained. So if you compare these two scenarios, okay, here in the first case, infrastructure as a service, you have a lot of work to do. So you have to have a cloud operations team who will be taking care of your operating system patching, backup, maintenance, management, monitoring, migration, and all such things. Even if you want to upgrade your middleware or upgrade your runtime environment, you have to do on your own. As a customer, we are responsible for doing all these things. So here you will have to have a cloud ops team, cloud operations team, or we generally call them system administrators, right? Sysadmin and so on. Whereas in platform as a service, we are only responsible for the development framework. We are just developing the application code, and the entire infrastructure and the platform, everything is provided by Microsoft. So here we really don't need to have a system administrator, because the management and managed services, whatever I said, right? When I say managed services, I'm always referring to these items: patching, monitoring, backup, migration, and then FinOps. So these are all something we call it as managed services. So the managed services is taken care by the provider. So as a customer, we only manage application data and the devices that is connecting to the cloud platform. So we really need developers who can go and create the application code. We need only programmers here. Okay, we don't really need the cloud operations or system administrators especially. But we might also need the DevOps team. So DevOps team, primarily they deal with the CI/CD pipeline, right? Who generally integrates the new functionalities, features to the existing environment, and they will ensure that the code is updated through the CI/CD pipeline. So DevOps team will also be involved in platform as a service. Developers and programmers will also be involved. So here also we might have cloud ops and the DevOps team involvement. And with software as a service, it is a ready-made software that you get. For example, your Google Drive or Google Mail, any email or messaging. Even in your office, you might be using tools like Workday, Concur, Salesforce. So these are all good examples of software as a service. Earlier, if you want to have your own business productivity application, you used to create it in your office itself or in your um, organization itself. But then now, if you want to do some finance and expense tracking, you get online applications ready-made. So for example, Concur, Workday for your HR application, and then if you want to allow some booking and stuff, like you get a lot of applications readily available. You don't have to really worry about that. Even when it comes to Microsoft, they have the complete suite of products, right? Office 365, or they call it as M365 now. So you get SharePoint online, you get Teams online, you get a lot of softwares, right? Microsoft Word, Skype, all those things as a readily available package. So here we go and get based on the licenses. As a customer, we just go and get the licenses and manage and maintain it. So it is purely based on the number of users or number of devices that is going to use the software. That is what we have to be worried about here. So it is merely like we are just an end user or we are a consumer for the completely readily available software. So Google Suite, M365, Zoho Suite, all those are good examples of software as a service. So these are the stuff. Okay, so I would say even any finance or expense tracking app, all these are good examples of software as a service. So this is what we kind of started yesterday. So based on the management or who manages what or who services what. So here the infrastructure is serviced by the provider. So that's why it is called infrastructure as a service. In the second category, both infrastructure and the platform is serviced by the provider. So it is called platform as a service. And the last one is software as a service. Okay. So there are some good examples that are available. I can also go and show you something on the slide. So I know some of you or one or two of you have joined from today. Okay, so I know like you missed the session because that we earlier had a plan of starting the session on today. So we have not discussed much yesterday. So we have just started with cloud terminology and then cloud benefit and cloud service model. So these are the three um, theoretical part that we discussed yesterday, and we are going to discuss the remaining part today. So this week we are just going to cover only the cloud introduction. Only next week we are going to discuss on what is Azure, why Azure is preferred over other customers, I mean other providers like AWS or GCP. What are the advantages that we have when you go and use Azure platform and so on. So next week we will be completely discussing on the Azure introduction. Okay, so from next week, like it is as per the planned dates, but today like we have preponed the session and we just covered two topics yesterday. Okay, so nothing much has been covered, so it's purely what I summarized now is what we discussed yesterday. Okay, so a lot of things can be listed as a good quality of cloud, but primarily, as I told you, high availability, maintainability, and reliability, these are all some good words. So I can keep on listing a lot of things, but for now, let's limit the benefits. So now what I was about to tell is the examples of each things, right? So for software as a service, we have Microsoft 365 or Office 365, Google Suite, Salesforce, Concur, Workday. So all these email services, cloud storage services, or corporate email services. So all these are good examples of software as a service. When you want to know some examples of platform as a service, Azure App Services, Azure databases, AWS Relational Database Service, Google Apps Engine, Salesforce, OpenShift. These are all examples of platform as a service. So you get readily available database, web applications, development tool, platform, and so on. Whereas infrastructure as a service, Azure Virtual Machine, EC2 instance in AWS, and then you have the virtual network, and then you have the storage, object storage, Amazon S3 or Azure Blob Storage. So these are all good examples of infrastructure as a service. Okay, so now we are done with the cloud service model. When it comes to exam, okay, you need to be aware of who manages what as a shared responsibility model. We covered this yesterday to some extent, but I just want to ensure that you understand this clearly so that there is not much doubts there, because there was a doubt. I recall that they were confused about who manages the application and data. I clearly explained application and data or data and information is always the customer responsibility. Okay, I think there is a slide about that. Let me copy that and explain it clearly. Okay, so this is what the shared responsibility model looks like. So in an IT data center, you have these different components, right? You have the physical data center and you have the networking components which interconnect the servers. You have the servers where you go and create the virtual machine. In public cloud platform, it is primarily virtual machine is what you go and create. So very rarely you go and create a dedicated host. Only if there is a legal compliance requirement, you go and request for dedicated host. Okay, so if you look at this diagram or the picture, you can see whatever listed in light blue, this is Microsoft responsibility. Okay, so Microsoft is always responsible for the physical data center, networking, the server infrastructure in infrastructure as a service model. So as a customer, we are responsible for these items. Okay, and in all the three models that we discussed, in infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service, as a customer, we are always responsible for the data and the information. Customer is always responsible for number one, the data or the information is customer responsibility, and even the devices, the mobile device or laptops, desktops, whichever we are using to connect to the cloud platform, it is under the customer responsibility. And then the last one, accounts and identities that you create. So if you want to allow some users or your employees to connect to the cloud infrastructure, you are the one who go and create the account and give them role-based access control on what they can access and what they can manage. So in all the three model, customer is always responsible for these three items. So you should be clear about this. This is very important. And cloud provider is always responsible for the physical data center and the server storage and networking component. So responsibility is always on the provider side. Okay, so there is some areas where you'll have a shared responsibility. For example, in platform as a service, you have some shared responsibility on application, network control, and identity and directory services or directory infrastructure. See, for example, if you talk about Microsoft, Microsoft provides you Azure Active Directory. Similarly, if you look at AWS, they also provide identity and access management, and they also provide managed AD and so on. So there are a lot of different offerings that AWS provide. So when it comes to identity and directory infrastructure, it is a shared responsibility. So provider provides you the identity related systems and so on. You go and create the users, group, policies, and so on, and you manage it. So that's why you have a shared responsibility in software as a service and platform as a service. Okay, in the platform as a service, in application also, it is a kind of shared responsibility because you are the one who will ensure that what kind of application code you are maintaining and what kind of application platform you need, which version you need, whether you want to upgrade them, or you will have some kind of moderate control on the application layer also. So you need to be aware of this. So this is what we call it as shared responsibility model. Okay, I saw some question on the chat. Let me try to read that. Is it same for all cloud models, public, private, and hybrid? No. So let's not confuse that, Ashok. I'll come to that part now. Okay, now any questions on the cloud definition, cloud benefits, especially the top 6 benefit? Any questions on the cloud service model? Any questions on the shared responsibility model? So you can ask that before we move on to the next topic.
Cloud service model, you
Yeah,
just mentioned the color, the consumer service, the color. So it's not the different one, right?
sorry.
If you
Consumer
go to
and
the
customer
cloud
are the same.
service,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
cloud service model. In that, just come down. That's a
Sure.
development and testing, and
Okay.
this cloud ops. I mean DevOps and cloud object storage. So this is a
Yeah.
customer responsibility, right?
Okay. Sorry. I think let me move this. So there was some questions yesterday, and I answered about this. So some of you are, I mean, one of you are asking, how do we do the backup handling in cloud?
No, no,
So
not.
that's a different
No,
topic.
no,
Yeah.
I'm not talking about that. I'm just
Mhm.
asking the color you are mentioned, this cloud ops and sysadmin. So
Uh-huh.
it's mean, but this is a customer responsibility, right?
Correct. Yeah. So as a customer, we need to have our
No,
own
no,
cloud
and I
operations team.
understand that. Only thing is because of the color, I thought it is service provider. Because
No.
for service
Oh,
provider,
okay. I
it is
understood. Yeah, I understood. Sorry about the color coding, Sendil. Okay, so you thought, so okay, I got it. Okay, so customer is responsible to have the um, for managing the environment, the cloud operations team, and the development and operations, the DevOps team. Yeah, customer is responsible for both of them. So here, provider is responsible for the infrastructure management, the physical infrastructure management, surveillance camera, and all those things, physical data center management, physical data center, infra, surveillance, all
Yeah,
those
same like
management.
as also the color here.
Okay, got it. Yeah. Okay, fine. So here, yeah, customer should be responsible for the development activities as well as the DevOps related activities. Yeah, perfect. Thank you for correcting. Yeah. So here we are mere end users. Fine. Yeah, it is customer who need to have the cloud operations team and the DevOps team here and the developers as well as the end users are from the customer side. Yeah. Okay, good. So let's move on to the next topic. So next topic is about the deployment model. Okay, so deployment model is different from service model. So we started telling about this. We have not discussed it. I just told like I'll cover it today. Okay, so when it comes to deployment model, cloud is a kind of delivery which can be shared by different consumers, right? It's a kind of renting concept. It's a kind of instead of buying, we are going and renting it. So based on the location, you can segregate the cloud deployment model into primarily three types. I would say there are much more types, but for now, let's talk about the top three types: public cloud, private cloud, and we also have the hybrid cloud model, and we have the community cloud, and we also have multi-cloud model. Okay, so whatever we are going to discuss primarily is around this public cloud: Microsoft Azure, AWS, Amazon Web Services, Google Cloud Platform, Alibaba Cloud. All these are examples of public cloud. So public cloud can be consumed by any general public. So if you are a customer, if you want to run some application, if you go and justify, or if you go and provide your details, you can start using the public cloud platform and you can start creating your applications or virtual machines and start running your business application there. But then private cloud is not like that. So private cloud is managed by a private organization, managed and maintained by a private organization. So it can be one single organization or it can be multiple companies part of the same dedicated organization. But ideally, the stuff is owned by a dedicated organization. General public cannot go and create something on the private cloud organization. It is specific to an organization or a company. Hybrid cloud, as you might have already assumed, it's a mix of private and public cloud. Okay, and then I'll talk about the community and multi-cloud shortly. Multi-cloud is nothing but using customers using multiple public cloud platform. Like one customer might
One
have,
query is
yeah,
done.
yeah, yeah,
On-prem will come in hybrid cloud or multi-cloud?
yeah. On-premises, private cloud is an extension of on-premises environment. Okay, so you have an on-premises setup and you go and add the cloud characteristics. Okay, I'll tell you. So there are some specific cloud characteristics that makes up the cloud platform. I'll come to that shortly, right? So now, yeah, private cloud is similar to your on-premises setup. Okay, so now these are the different type of cloud deployment models that a customer can have. So the public cloud is generally accessed using the internet. Okay, so the reason it is called public cloud, it is open for all general public, and also you are accessing the resources using the public WAN or public internet. So you are accessing it using the internet connection, the WAN connection. Whereas mostly the private cloud, it is accessible only for the private organization and you generally access it within your local area network or the LAN network. So you have a customer only those customer end users will be able to access that. The dedicated organization users only will be allowed to access it. Or you can also use a private network VPN to access it privately. And here, even on the first case also, you can have virtual private networks connecting to the public cloud. You can allow some private secure connections also to public cloud. But predominantly, it is the internet WAN connection. The public internet is what will be used in the public cloud. So that's why it is named as public cloud. And then the private cloud, it is private to organization. Hybrid cloud is a mix, and we will start discussing little more points here. Okay, so when it comes to the comparison, I think, let me see. I had a slide. Yeah. So here, let me show you. Okay, yeah. So public cloud, it is generally built by the third-party cloud provider. The third-party cloud provider who is managing and controlling it is example like Microsoft, Amazon, Google. So they build the data center, they control the infrastructure. They are the one who is completely responsible for the physical data center and the infrastructure layer. Okay, so the public cloud, third-party cloud provider manages and maintains the physical data center and the infrastructure components that is there. Here, as a customer, we don't have to go and invest anything. There is no capital expenditure to scale up. We just have to go and request for more space, and then based on the consumption, as a customer, we will be paying for what we have consumed. It is a pay-as-you-go using model. So with public cloud, as I told you, anyone can go and access the resources, use the resources, provided you are a legitimate user. So you will be asked for your valid identity card and the location and all those details. So it's not like any stranger can go and do it. You should provide your identity. You have to confirm that you are owning a banking transaction with a particular country, and then only you will be allowed. Okay, even though it is open for all general public, people cannot easily misuse it, because there are chances that people might subscribe for public cloud services, and they might use it for some they might misuse it, right? So that has to be avoided. In order to avoid that, you need to provide your identity, and you also have to show that you have a banking transaction in a particular country. Okay, that's why Microsoft or Amazon, they ask for your identity proof, as well as they ask for a kind of credit card or a debit card to ensure that you have a specific country banking transaction. Okay, so that is mainly to show your credibility and ensure that you are not going to misuse the public cloud platform. But in general, public cloud is open for any customer, any general public can go and create systems. Okay, application can be quickly provisioned and deprovisioned. It is all templatized. Okay, so you don't have to really um, uh, like in the traditional environment in your own on-premises data center. What we generally used to do is we go and purchase a server, and then we have to load the CD or DVD or map the ISO file, and then we install the operating system, we upgrade the firmware, or we install the driver and so on, right? But in the cloud, we don't maintain the infrastructure. We just have an image, and using that image, we'll be quickly provisioning the virtual machine, or even the application can be quickly provisioned. And even if you don't want that server or storage, you can immediately release it, deprovision it. It is as easy as that. Okay, and you are going to pay only for what you are consuming. There is no spare or wastage, or there is no over provisioning in the public cloud. So in the on-premises, I told you, right? So there is a in the private cloud, you have to that is the biggest challenge in the private cloud environment. Let me reiterate that point. Yesterday I talked about that, but let me talk about that again. So stop guessing capacity, right? So in the on-premises environment, that is the biggest challenge we have. So what we generally do is we go and procure the infrastructure for the maximum usage. Okay, let me see where it is. Yeah, I think this one. Yeah, see, this is the challenge, right? For example, if you want to create a server, or if you want to provision a storage in your on-premises before the cloud concept, what you have to generally do. For example, if your application is going to be accessed by 1,000 users, during the peak usage time. So you cannot have a server with very less capacity. So you need to purchase a server for the peak load or the maximum load that you are anticipating. For example, the maximum load that you might need is like maybe 1 TB of memory might be needed, or 32 virtual CPUs might be needed for the peak usage. So when you go and purchase the server in the on-premises data center, you have to go and purchase the maximum capacity for the peak usage. Whereas in the cloud, unlike the on-premises purchase, you can purchase for what you need. For example, for the initial month, you can have very less capacity, and based on the increase in usage, you can go and increase the capacity. So you don't have to really waste a lot of money by investing like in your on-premises. In on-premises, we have to guess a particular capacity and we go and over provision it most of the time. So that is the problem in on-premises or before the cloud came in. So you have to guess the capacity, and then sometimes you might end up over provisioning it, and sometimes you might also purchase a server which is not up to the specifications that you might need. So you might have to go and expand the storage or server, and you have to keep taking downtime. But in cloud, you can keep adding, or you can scale up your resources, or you can also scale out by adding more servers in the cloud as you need. Okay, that is the biggest advantage you have in public cloud. Okay, in private cloud, you have to purchase the higher cost hardware and you might keep it idle for many months. See, in this example also, you might have purchased a server in January itself, but then the peak usage for your application might be in April or May. Until that time, you are not at all using the resources. You are wasting a lot of resources. That's how it used to be before the cloud, right? So in private cloud, okay, organizations will own the entire data center, and you will have complete access on the infrastructure components and so on. So there is no other customers who will have access. So security part is pretty much good here. So instead of delivering the services for multiple customers, we are just providing services for single organization, dedicated organization. That dedicated organization might have done a lot of acquisition, merger, and there might be small companies or department within that organization. But the private cloud is dedicated to a single entity. Either it is a small organization. There are two categories. I'll explain that now, and then I will come back to this slide. So in private cloud, you can go with two different model: managed private cloud or hosted private cloud, HPC. Okay, so what are these two types, or what is the difference between these two types? These are all subdivision of private cloud: managed private cloud and hosted private cloud, HPC, or virtual private cloud. We can call it as virtual private cloud also. Okay, so in a custom in an IT data center, you might have this particular different components, right? Let me just do one thing. Okay, so let me try to do this. So this is what you generally have in a IT data center, right? Let me delete this. Okay, or let me do it the other way. Okay, let's assume you have a IT applications hosted on a particular data center. Okay, so this data center, let's assume we call it as a private cloud environment. Okay, so this private cloud might be owned by a non-IT organization. For example, you might have organizations like Nestle or Mercedes or Nissan or whatever, right? So some non-IT organization is owning this. It can be a financial organization or an automobile or wholesale retail providers and so on. So let's assume that we have a data center for a financial organization. Okay, this financial organization, this bank owns the private cloud. Okay, and what they generally do is they will outsource the IT management to a third party provider. See here, maybe companies like IBM or HCL or TCS or whoever, they will be managing the private cloud platform for the particular organization. So like service provider or IT service provider, IT infrastructure service provider will manage the infrastructure, like companies like HCL or IBM or TCS or whatever, right? So they will manage the IT infrastructure for this particular customer or particular organization. So that's what they call it as managed private cloud. So the private cloud is owned by the organization, but the IT management is taken care by a third party service provider. Okay, so this is what we call it as managed private cloud here. Okay, so the IT infra is managed by third party. Whereas in hosted private cloud, it's little different. It is the other way around. Let's take, you have a data center. There are, see, companies like IBM and HP, they have been in the IT industry for a very long time. So they have got a lot of data centers across the region, right? And in their data center, they have started doing virtualization, right? Initially, in the traditional IT concept, we used to have one server for one application. That is what we used to do before virtualization, right? That's what we discussed yesterday. So for each server application or each business application, we'll have a single server hardware. But then now we have started using multiple, one server hardware can have multiple virtual machine, and thereby multiple applications can coexist on the same server hardware. So instead of 1,000 hardware for 1,000 application, what has happened in virtualization? So we need to have 1,000 hardware for 1,000 application earlier. But now one server hardware can have up to 30. So there has been a drastical reduction, right? So now only we need 300 to 400 hardware for 1,000 application. So that's how things have changed. So because of virtualization, a lot of data center space has been reduced. See, when the number of physical server coming down, automatically the number of server rack needed will be drastically reduced. For example, for 1,000 hardware, let's assume like in one rack we are having 10 servers. So we need 100 racks for 1,000 servers. Here we just need that 30 to 40 racks, right? Only that much is needed. So you have claimed a lot of free space in the data center because of virtualization, and automatically each server rack will have top of the rack switch for interconnecting the racks, interconnecting the servers, and so on. So there will be multiple racks or switches or routers and so on. Okay, there will be multiple switches. For each rack there will be one switch, and for the interconnectivity of the switches we might use routers at times and so on, right? So there will be multiple devices that is needed here. So automatically it has been reduced. It has reduced the rack, it has reduced the space, it has reduced the number of switches, number of routers, number of cabling connection. So data center size or consumption has drastically come down. So for example, if IBM, let's take IBM is having a data center in one of the location, so they might have a lot of space now. So what IBM has done is they have upgraded their data center into a kind of private cloud platform, and they have started allowing their own customers to come and rent the space here. So what IBM will do is they will create a compartment. They will allow customer one to get some space, and they can take some servers, racks, and the customer two can come and take some space and rack, and then they can have their own application running here. So customer one, customer two, so they will be hosting multiple customers on their physical data center. So this is not a public cloud concept. Instead, it is a private data center managed and maintained by IBM, but different customers can be hosting their application. It is a kind of co-location, but not exactly. We cannot just limit it to a co-location, but co-location is a good example of making best use of the data center. But let's talk about as you mentioned in the chat, yeah, we can call it as a colo, but it is primarily hosting multiple customers on their private data center. Hosting multiple customers on a private cloud or a data center. Okay, this is called hosted private cloud. So private cloud can be of two types. The first type, the provider, the banking company or the automobile industry, they will have their own data center. They will upgrade their data center into a cloud platform, and they will ask providers to manage the IT infrastructure. But then the business application, when they want to expand more storage or expand more servers, so the bank has to invest the money here. Okay, so that is the important point that you need to understand. Whereas in hosted private cloud, if the customer want to have more rack or more storage or more server, IBM will invest, the provider will invest for that, and then they will rent the capacity, and based on the usage or based on the servicing that the provider is doing, they will charge the customer 1, customer 2 and customer 3. So the customer 1 can be a banking customer, this can be automobile customer, so it can be different customers on provider's data center. Okay, so there are two different models. So the IT infrastructure is managed, the private cloud is managed by third party, that's why it is called managed private cloud. Here in the second example, service provider is hosting multiple customer in their private data center or in their private cloud environment. That's why it is called hosted private cloud. Okay, so there are two different types of private cloud that are predominantly seen in the IT environment. So now there will be a question, right? I think one of you asked whether on-premises is the same as the public private cloud. It is almost the same, but when it comes to cloud, we talked about some benefits, right? Some characteristics earlier. So for example, if you take this is a kind of on-premises data center that you have, right? In your on-premises data center, you will have networking switches, routers, firewall devices. You might have server storage and other hosting, compute storage and all. And then you will have the virtual machine running your application. But in public cloud model, the very basic advantage or the basic thing that I told about is the single sign-on portal or the self-service portal, right? So generally, when you talk about cloud, you should ideally have a single sign-on portal through which you should be able to connect and manage and maintain the environment. So that is very, very important. Okay, so that is what is the primary characteristics of cloud. So very first thing that you should have is a single sign-on portal or single sign-on or self-service portal is what is really needed. So if you are a developer or if you're a DevOps engineer or a cloud operations team or a FinOps team or a business owner or an application owner, you have to log into the same portal for anything that you need. Okay, everything should be simplified and you should have a consolidated single sign-on to a self-service portal. So if you want more virtual machines or if you want more storage or if you want to provision some app services or some Azure functions or whatever you need, you have to log into the same portal. So that is what Microsoft has done, right? So Microsoft has got one single portal. If you want to access anything that is on the Microsoft data center, you have to log in through portal.azure.com. So it can be a data center in the US or India or UK. You have to log into the same portal and you will be accessing the various resources hosted in different data center. The very first thing that the provider should have to provide is the self-service portal, single sign-on portal. And the next thing here, as I told you, unlike the traditional days, we are not going and provisioning the physical server. We are not installing the operating system. We are not installing the driver or firmware. Instead, what we are doing is we are going and asking, I need a virtual machine with this amount of CPU, memory, and storage. Then automatically based on your selection criteria, whether you want Windows server or Linux server or what kind of application preloaded. You can also have preloaded application like SQL database and others. What happens in the back end? So when you go and request for that, there are two different things that works together. One is the orchestration engine and automation engine. So these are the two important things that works behind the scene. So orchestration is nothing but a set of workflow. Okay, for example, when you are going and installing a physical server, what you generally do? You go and configure the BIOS first, and then you go and install the operating system, then you install the driver, then you upgrade the firmware if it is old, and then you start installing your application. So there is a set of tasks that you do step by step, right? That is what we call it as orchestration. Orchestration is nothing but step by step or set of instructions or workflow. Okay, let me just make some points here. So orchestration, you can call it as a workflow. What has to be done first, next, and so on. It is a set of tasks that are sequentially arranged. Okay, set of tasks, or you can say it is a workflow. It's a step-by-step sequential instruction. Okay, for example, if you want to deploy an application, before deploying the application, you need to ensure that the runtime is available, the operating system is available, and you have the right version, right compatible elements in place, right? So orchestration is nothing but a set of sequence of tasks that will be triggered. If you want to create a, if you go and request for, I need a new virtual machine, behind the scene, it will go and select the image for which like you have selected Windows or Linux, and it will go and create the operating system, deploy the virtual machine automatically for you. So orchestration and automation works behind the scene to provision whatever you are requesting. So once after you log into the single sign-on portal, automatically behind the scene, this orchestration engine and the automation engine works together. See, if you are already having experience in IT industry, I can give you some examples here. See, if you, I think most of you are from virtualization background, right? So if you are logging into your VMware or vRealize suite, you know that there are different tools, right? vRealize orchestration or VRO, and we have VRA, VMware, vRealize automation. So these are the different tools that are working behind the scenes to automate the things, to orchestrate the things. Even if you are, I mean, I'm from, I mean, I've worked with HP in the past, right? So HP had got their own product called orchestration, operations orchestration, and then they used to have this HPCSA, single sign-on portal. So different vendor, they have their own products for self-service portal, orchestration, automation, and so on. And then you also need to have mechanism to meter. For example, I told you in a private cloud environment, even though it is a private cloud environment, there might be multiple departments, multiple business unit, multiple companies. You might, the organization might have acquisitioned a new a company, or they might have got merged with another company, and so on, right? So they need to have a kind of mechanism to meter what the different business units are consuming. See, if you are going and buying a flat, the gated community flat, they cannot say that all the flats are same size and you can pay the same amount, right? So we have to have a metering mechanism to measure the consumption, and only based on the measurement, like I'm talking about the utility here, right? Your electricity or water supply. So they have to have a mechanism to meter how much you are consuming, and you will pay for what you have consumed, right? Similarly, in the private cloud environment, even though it is the same organization, different business unit, different department within that organization might have different budget. Okay, and if for example, like, we cannot assume things here. Let's take an educational institute. Okay, and for example, like VIT or any specific larger university, the university, like if it is a engineering related, they might have different department, right? And for example, you cannot assume that computer science department might consume a lot of IT resources compared to mechanical or production engineering and so on. You cannot assume that. The reason I say that, see, computer science department might need very less configuration systems to run their C++ or Java or whatever. But then the engineering departments like production engineering or mechanical, they might need very high computing capacity. They might be running a lot of machine learning, or they might need AutoCAD kind of application, for which we need specialized hardware because graphics is involved, right? You need to purchase graphics card. They might need more memory and CPU. So only if you are able to measure, only when you are able to meter what different departments or different business units are consuming, you can go and ask them to pay. Otherwise, mechanical department will say, like, we are not IT departments, you have to get more money from IT department or computer science department. That is what they will generally claim, right? So you have to definitely have a metering mechanism irrespective of whether all of the departments belonging to the same company or same university or same organization. Without metering, you cannot convince their consumption. Okay, so you should definitely have metering even though it is a single organization. So why we are metering? Mainly to do a chargeback. So see, the organization or the company is investing on IT related storage or server or whatever they are purchasing licenses. They have to get the revenue back, right? They have to get the benefits out of the investment. So what they are doing is they are going and charging back the business unit or departments based on the IT investment that they have done. So without charging back based on the consumption or the business application benefit, you cannot reap the benefit, right? So chargeback is the reason why we need to have a metering mechanism. The next thing is monitoring. Okay, so people will be confused, or some of you might get confused between monitoring and metering. See, monitoring is different, metering is different. Monitoring is all about uh, whether the server is online, whether the application is performing as per the requirement, how many users are connecting. We are talking about metrics here. Okay, what is the CPU utilization on the server? How much memory is this application code consuming? So these are all monitoring. Monitoring is checking the performance, monitoring the availability, whether your application is accessible. So that is what we call it as monitoring. So whereas metering is more about consumption, how much we are consuming. Okay, but they are closely related to each other, but they are kind of different. Monitoring, it is referring to the measure. I mean, we are talking about monitoring the availability, uptime, and then utilization, and so on. Okay, so here metering is more about consumption, and using metering, we are charging back. And what is the why we are monitoring? See, if you are getting an alert that a particular server is down or a particular application is down, or if there is high utilization of CPU or memory on that server, you have to go and take steps to bring the services back, or you have to increase the memory. If the memory consumption is high or utilization is high, you have to go and increase the resources, or you have to go and start the service if the service is down. If the server itself is down, we need to go and recover the system either by restoring to the previous well-known state or good configuration, or you need to recover from the backup. So that is what we generally do, right? We go and do a remediation, or you can also automate. For example, there are tools that are available through which you can automatically start the service if there is an alert coming in. You can also nowadays have a lot of tools which can help you to maintain a configuration state, whether when the service is going down, automatically you can have scripts that can go and start the service, start the server. So a lot of options are nowadays available. So auto remediation is a very important feature or characteristics that is needed, so which is mainly close to your monitoring metrics. So next important characteristics is a multi-tenancy. When you talk about cloud, you should have, you will definitely have multiple departments or multiple customers in public cloud, or in a private cloud. You might have multiple departments, business units. You might have small companies within the larger organization, and so on. See, from outside, for you, like a particular customer might look like a single organization, but then there might be a lot of small companies. See, Microsoft as a company, they have bought or acquisitioned at least 100 companies in their last 30 years. Okay, similarly, Amazon has been doing a lot of acquisition. They have at least bought or merged with at least 40 to 50 companies. Okay, so even I have worked with a company called Maersk, right? From outside, you might see that as a one company, but then it is a very larger organization. They have a small oil and gas business unit that is separate. They have Maersk drilling, Maersk, lot of different shipping and so on. So an organization can have multiple small companies within the organization. Organization is a big word, right? It's a huge thing. And multi-tenancy means you have different customers or companies within the same organization accessing the resources. It is shared across departments or business unit. So that is what we call it as multi-tenancy. So we are talking about a kind of flat system. It's not a individual single owned house. It's a kind of multi-tenancy. There are multiple tenant in this private cloud. Next one is the API integration. See, now you have an IT infrastructure. It might have to go and talk to different tools. For example, you might have to use the same monitoring tool to monitor the on-premises data center and the public cloud. You might have to integrate with ticketing system for ITSM management. It can be your ServiceNow or Remedy. So you have to have a IT service management, right? Definitely this particular environment, whatever you are choosing, it should have an integration mechanism through which you can connect to different systems and so on. Even if you are doing a kind of financial operation or FinOps, you need to understand how the consumption is or what kind of analytics and all those things, right? So you generally go and monitor it, measure what you are consuming, and you might have to integrate with analytics engine or machine learning or other capabilities in order to do the right sizing kind of thing. So I can keep on listing. So these are all some of the characteristics that you need to add on your physical on-premises data center to call it as a private cloud. So how we are achieving that? So that is where you go and deploy products like OpenStack or Azure Stack, Cloud 360, or I would say Cloud Stack, and then Soft Layer from IBM, Helion from HP, VMware vRealize Suite. So these are all examples of AWS has got outposts, right? So if you deploy this particular suite of products or this particular application, you will get all these features that is listed on the right. Okay, so that is what we are doing. So if you go and purchase Outpost, this Outpost is the combination of all these characteristics. So if you're going and purchasing vRealize Suite, you will get vRealize automation, vRealize orchestration, monitoring capabilities, and so on. So it's a bundle of characteristics is what you get. Even in OpenStack, all these facilities will be given. Okay, so they have a heat, or they have the self-service portal. They also have orchestration, automation, metering options, and so on. So these are all the products that are readily available, which can upgrade your existing physical data center to a cloud kind of solutioning or a cloud servicing model. Okay, so when someone asks you what are the characteristics of cloud, so you have to list all these things. Okay, so when you are going and deploying this product in your on-premises data center, you are converting any of your product. You need not deploy all of them. You can deploy either OpenStack or Azure Stack or Cloud Stack, or even you can purchase Soft Layer or Helion or VMware vRealize Suite or Outpost. So all these are going to give you a kind of okay, it is going to give you all the characteristics that you need to have for a cloud environment. Okay, so you cannot call your data center one fine day as a private cloud. You need to have all these facilities, all these characteristics enabled in your private cloud and in your on-premises data center. Only then you can call your on-premises data center as a private cloud. Okay, I hope it is clear. Okay, let me put it here. You can refer it later. Yeah, go ahead. If there is a question, please ask. Your voice is very low, Shakti. No, I think I mean, is it only for me, or you guys are able to hear him properly?
No, I could not hear this time.
Oh, you are also not able to hear, right? Okay. So I think you can use the chat also.
So Stan, I have a question here.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Go ahead. Yeah.
Um, since you are talking about all these characteristic features, right, for this
Mm-hmm.
requirement for this,
Yeah.
I have a little bit
Mm-hmm.
conflicts or confusion on my understanding. Just
Mm-hmm.
want to make sure.
Yeah.
If you are saying private, public, and private, right? So public
Mm-hmm.
is something which is already provided by like computing resources to whatever they are giving it, right? As far as now. So
Mm-hmm.
data we manage anyway. Shared data is our responsibility, but
Mm-hmm.
still. I still cannot understand one point. Private cloud something like hosted in the client premises and converting as a cloud solution, or how it is?
Correct, that is true. So, private cloud, it is always hosted in your own data center. See, when I say your own data center, there are two different models, right? The first model that I explained is about the organization itself might have their own data center. For example, Toyota as an organization, it is a huge automobile organization, right? They also have their own data center for running their business application, and they cannot continue to do the legacy or traditional way of maintaining and managing the data center. They also want to come up with how cloud gives you agility, speed, and then flexibility and so on, right? So cloud gives you a lot of option to automatically go and request for a server, database, or you have a very good option to go and measure what you are consuming. And all these features are expected by the departments or from the business unit. So in order to convert that existing physical data center into a cloud kind of model, you need to go and install or deploy OpenStack, or you have to purchase the Azure Stack suite of products or VMware vRealize suite of products to bring those characteristics, whatever I have listed, right? So let me show you that. So these characteristics will be enabled. If you go and purchase or implement OpenStack, you will get all these features in your own data center. So if you are talking about the second private cloud model, here IBM will go and upgrade their data center with all the cloud characteristics. And as a customer one, you can also request for virtual machine the way you are asking for a new server in public cloud. So same way you can also do it in your private cloud itself. We are just reciprocating, or we are just having a similar model like the public cloud in your own data center. See, if you go and purchase Azure Stack, what they are going to give you. So you are also going to have similar portal in your own data center. Even if you're going and purchasing AWS Outpost, you are going to have a similar single sign-on portal like how you are accessing your public cloud. That is specific to your organization. That is what they are enabling to you.
So
So
in
they
this
are,
case, I have a
yeah.
question here.
Yes, yes.
Recently, I'm on the database background.
Mm-hmm.
So there are certain database clustering is not supported by many of the cloud providers so far. It's a evolving model now.
Yeah.
But what we have done is to enhance the clustering facility. We bought a Google Cloud Verizon engine, sorry,
Mm-hmm.
VMware engine. So
Okay.
that is posted on the private cloud, but still
Mm-hmm.
it's a cloud facility. So I want to understand this particular concept of the how this vendor is providing the cloud solution compared to what we are getting the offering from the public cloud as well as the private cloud. That is the only one part I'm little bit, having a misunderstanding on that.
Okay. See, that model is a little different model from what we have been discussing. See, we have been talking about public cloud, private cloud, hybrid cloud, community cloud, and multi-cloud, right? Whereas there are some customers, as you said, they have got some business application on large um, enterprise databases which are still not supported by a specific cloud provider. Okay, so there are cases like that. And also there are situations the customer have been using the virtualization for last 10-15 years, and they want to continue using that VMware vCenter license or vSphere license, or they want to continue using the VMware suite of products. And but they also want to explore the options that the Azure provides, right? Azure provides you on-demand storage, on-demand virtual machine. You are also getting a lot of like Lambda function in Azure. You get Azure functions. There are a lot of serverless containers option that are available in Azure platform. So for which what they generally do is they go and subscribe for Azure VMware solution, So what we do is the solutions that are not still supported on Azure, we host it on the VMware set of servers in the Azure data center. But then you can also easily integrate with the Azure set of products and services. So you can address the challenge that you have on the non-compatibility in the public cloud. This particular whatever you said, it's not supported, but still you want to explore the Azure data center facility and features, and you want to make best use of it. What you can do is you can go for Azure VMware solution. Your business application and database can be hosted on those VMware VMware platform, and you also have a easier option to integrate with Azure offered products and services. So both of these things can be made available. It is a kind of combined offering. Similarly, you also have it in AWS also. We call it as VMware Cloud on AWS. Okay, so that is also available. And the other providers, Oracle, Google, they also provide similar offering where you can utilize the options and the product services provided by the public cloud. Also, you can have a set of servers running on your VMware hypervisor, which can be integrated to the public cloud offering. But this is a kind of mixed solution that nowadays we can see. It's a kind of, it doesn't come under this, okay? But it's a kind of separate offering. I think you talked about Google or Oracle. I did not listen to it, but yeah, it was very much similar. Yeah.
So this will not come under any kind of cloud category.
Yeah,
This
no, it doesn't come under. See here, you are getting you are going to use public cloud data center, but you also have some servers which are running on dedicated hardware. For example, so you let's say you are using Azure VMs, you are using Azure databases, Azure storage. So whichever is supported, you are using Azure. Whereas whichever is not supported by the public cloud provider, your business application or database, you will be running it on a VMware hypervisor on a dedicated hardware or a dedicated set of hardware. So you will have both of them. Okay, so it's a kind of we can kind of consider that as a hybrid model, but it's not exactly the hybrid cloud. Okay, it's a hybrid model, but it is little different. Okay, but anyways, I mean, if some of you understood this, it's good. Otherwise, you can for now you can skip this. Okay, I'll explain it a little later. Okay, so I mean, any questions on the characteristics? I saw some questions coming in on the chat. Let me. So these services are just an added layer on your existing on-prem setup to mimic the exactly, Nikhil. Yeah, so we are mimicking whatever you are getting in public cloud. See, customers are nowadays used to the public cloud, right? So they also don't want to go and do the same routine things. So earlier, if you want a server to be ready for your application, what the IT team generally does, so they go and install the OS, they go and patch it and all those things, right? So they are tired of the waiting time. They don't want to spend a lot of rework, and also if you have an image or a template, it will be consistent across your application. So nowadays, if you want to have a server provisioned in your on-premises private cloud also, you will have a template, or you will have a infrastructure as a code, or you will have an image from which your servers will be provisioned or deployed. I would say it's not creating, it's deploying the servers or applications and so on. So it will be consistent because you are using an image, the patches, the version, and all those things will be consistent. It is good. So yeah, we are mimicking what we have in the public cloud to your on-premises existing data center. So that is the easiest way of defining it. Yeah. Okay, let me see if there is any other question for me to. Okay, cost added service monitoring. Yeah, compared to your public cloud, private cloud will be definitely costlier. The reason is you are purchasing to the maximum capacity that you are anticipating, right? Unlike public cloud, private cloud, you have to invest on capital expenditure. In public cloud, it is an OpEx model, right? Yes, that's what we discussed yesterday. So the consumption model is little different. In public cloud, the consumption model is operational expenditure model. So you go and consume and you pay for it. It's a pay as you go model or pay as you consume model, right? That is the consumption model here in public cloud. In private cloud, it is capital expenditure model. So you have to do a upfront investment. You have to buy the hardware, you have to buy the storage, you have to buy the licenses and all those things, and then you have to run the service. So definitely you have to do a lot of maintenance of your hardware. Private cloud, you are also responsible for managing and maintaining the data center, right? So in the private cloud data center, you have to take care of your own data center network and all the components, and it's a lot of cost is involved. But the biggest advantage of private cloud, you can have whatever you need. For example, if you want to run Windows 2003, or if you want to run Red Hat version 5 or whatever, you have the complete control, you have the complete decision making authority, and you can go and run whatever application version, OS version. You have full control, full manageability of your existing data center. You can have the older traditional 32-bit applications still running on your own data center. But in public cloud, there are a lot of restrictions, right? You should have N-2 or N-1 version. At least you should have that. Or mostly they always ask you to go with the latest version of operating system or application or platform. So that's the main challenge we have. But in private cloud, you get all the flexibility, you have a lot of control, but you have to invest a lot of money. Okay, that is the biggest thing. So cost is high in your own private cloud environment, but you will have complete control on your IT landscape. Security is completely managed by you, and it's good actually. Okay, but the private cloud is confined to a dedicated organization or a single entity or a single company. Okay, so organization customer is the fully responsible for data center maintenance, hardware maintenance, update, upgrade, and so on. Okay, the next category is hybrid cloud. Hybrid cloud is the mix of,
Stanley, one question from my
yeah,
side regarding the private
yes,
cloud. Yeah,
yes.
this private cloud normally it's hosted in the wherever the location we can decide, right? Like same like public cloud, we
Mhm.
can select the location for the private cloud also, right?
See, private cloud, you should have a data center to upgrade it or to enhance it. So you should already have a data center, and you are deploying the cloud suite like OpenStack or Azure Stack, and then enhancing it. Only if you have a data center, you can do that. Okay, so it depends on the organization.
You
Yeah,
mean in on-prem only we are extending to the cloud level? That is the private cloud.
true, Sendel. Yeah, you have an on-premises data center. You are
But earlier,
maybe.
I had some session like
Mhm,
for private cloud. That time they said like same like public cloud, we can procuring this. I mean the hypervisor and everything, and
mhm,
dedicated network and dedicated resources, and
mhm,
we can do it in a way like public cloud.
mhm.
We can just pull it, select the location and all the things, right? The same way, including the hypervisor, we can select and we can form a cloud
Mhm,
in the cloud itself, not in the on-prem. I
mhm.
mean, nothing from on-prem, only in the cloud itself we can farm this private cloud. That's what I
Yeah,
heard in another
yeah,
one
yeah. See,
session. So a
no
bit
problem. See,
confusion in this.
no, no, no. So it is kind of true. See, that's where I explained about two different model, right? See, if you are going and purchasing a kind of servers, or you are going and deploying the servers in IBM data center, it is also a kind of private cloud deployment, but you are going
Yeah,
and
yeah, this
purchasing.
scenario is okay, understood. The
Yeah.
hosted private cloud, we are extending our on-prem to the cloud level. The Azure
No, no,
Stack and
no,
so many
no,
things
no,
will come,
no,
right?
no, 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 no. So, see, this both are private cloud environment, both are on-premises data center. Here, the data center is owned by the customer itself. The data center is owned by the banking vendor or the
Okay, okay. Here,
automobile
this two
vendor.
examples for only for on-prem.
Yeah, yeah, both are on-prem. Yes.
Okay, okay. No, I'm
So,
looking for the another thing like what I heard earlier, like the complete environment as in the from the cloud side, not from. I mean, there is no data center from on-prem. The complete hypervisor and everything is from cloud side. Is it possible, right? From
So
private cloud?
Stan, the same question only I was also quoting before.
mhm,
Before the concepts was something like when also I also read in some documents. They said
mhm.
private cloud is offering is given by the provider data center itself. I mean, we don't have to manage anything. they give the set of private network and everything, right? So VPC.
Yes.
Same way
Yeah.
they are offering all the solutions for the specific customer from their own data center, not from the on-premise or hosted data center. That's
See,
the
this is,
confusion I also
yeah,
have.
correct. So the same example, I took IBM as an example. See, Salesforce or there are a lot of Indian IT companies or a lot of third-party providers who have their own data center and they provide you virtual space. They will give you set of racks or they will give you set of servers and you can go and create your own network and then you'll have complete control on that particular logical segment. So customer one, customer two, customer three, these are all separate customers. So again, IBM data center, you have to access it through the internet, or you can have a dedicated virtual private connection or VPN connection to that data center to access the resources. It is a kind of public model, but then it is not available for everyone. See, in IBM data center, if you want to have your services running, you should have a kind of agreement, enterprise agreement with IBM. Only IBM customer can go and avail the services. I mean, as a general public, you cannot just go and do that. See, even if you want to go and host some services in Salesforce data center, you have to talk to Salesforce first. You need to have come in with an agreement and then you go and get some space. So here, this is also a kind of public model, but it's a
Yeah,
virtual private cloud. Yeah.
yeah, I understand. My question is, can we create a private cloud? I mean, without any additional of on-prem or such a thing, can we create a private cloud in the cloud itself, right? I mean, Azure itself, we can create, right? Private cloud.
Okay, so that is again leading to the same question that Rajendran sir was asking, right? So he was asking about this
No,
different
the
model.
say for an example, I don't have
Yeah.
any on-prem.
Mm, mm,
We are a new business. We are new business to this cloud, and
mhm,
so instead of public, I'm planning to do it in a private cloud. Means we
mm.
can very well create that private cloud, right, in cloud itself, because that
Yeah,
is
yeah. See,
costly and dedicated
this is
hypervisor
example.
and
Yeah.
dedicated network. Yeah.
Correct. So, example, if you talk about a VMware cloud on AWS, this VMware host or the VMware setup server is dedicated to the customer. Okay, the VMware hosts are dedicated to the customer. You can run your application or database or whatever, whereas the integration part is readily available for you. You can connect to AWS storage or AWS database or any other services. Similarly, you can also go and purchase dedicated hardware or dedicated host if you have some legal licensing requirement or compliance requirement or security requirements where your application cannot run with a kind of other tenant or other customer, you can also go and get the dedicated host also. Okay, so here VMware host, you will get a kind of IP range or a complete network in the public cloud and you can run your application, whereas you can also go and get a dedicated host in your own VPC and you can start running your application, but you have to pay more. See, that's the difference, right? So if you are getting dedicated resources, the charge of getting those will be higher. So that model is also available in the public cloud. See, companies are requesting for different each customer has their own unique legal requirements, security requirements. If they want to follow HIPAA standard or SOC standard or PCI standard, the standard tells them that they cannot have their application on a shared hardware, right? Automatically they need to find out an option in the public cloud. So they cannot have only two application running in a separate data center and then a few application running in Microsoft and few application running in third party. That will become very complex in terms of management, contractual obligations, and so on. So as a provider, Microsoft, Amazon, they are also coming out with options where customers can have dedicated host, dedicated virtualization host, and they can also use the products and services that they primarily offer from their platform. It is available. It is getting available
Okay.
from all the providers. Yeah,
Thank you. Thank you.
yeah. So,
Thanks, Dan. The reason
no
why I
problem.
am asking is most
Yeah.
of the interview questions, the
Mhm.
first question itself, we are bumbled with these kind of types. Sometimes we have to be very clear on that concepts.
True. Understood. Yeah, I mean, fair enough. So, yeah, here in the private cloud, in your own on-premises data center, you have to do a lot of on-premises upfront investment. You need to manage the hardware expiry, software expiry, OS expiry, so renewal, contracts, licensing, management, monitoring, a lot of complexity is there. It is costly, but you get full control. So if you want to have full control, you need to pay more. You need to have all the stuffs, management, maintenance stuff taken care. Okay, so the last model is the hybrid cloud model. Hybrid cloud model, see, some applications might have legal requirements. They cannot be running on a public cloud or a third-party data center. So those applications can continue to remain in your own data center, so in your own on-premises data center, and some application which can be migrated to public cloud, they can run to public cloud. So you will have some applications running on premises, some application running on the public cloud. It's a mix of private and public, right? It's a mix of public private cloud or on-premises data center environment and public cloud environment. So some apps might run on on-prem and some will be on Azure. And similarly, if there is some licensing issues or stuff, you can have your databases in on-prem, and then you can move the front end, the web application or web app tier to Azure platform, and for which like you can have a virtual private connection or VPN setup, or you can have a direct connect to have better latency, better connectivity between your application running on public cloud and private cloud. Okay, so it can be multiple different things. You can also have high availability established. For example, you can have some servers running on premises, some servers running on a public cloud. So you have a mix of servers both in both on-prem as well as in the public cloud. If on-prem data center is having issues, automatically the users will be getting the services from the public cloud. So you can also have disaster recovery or business continuity solutions. So your on-prem data center can be primary, and then your public cloud can be secondary in your application. So you can have business continuity or DR scenario. DR means only when your primary data center goes down, it will switch over to the public cloud platform or the secondary region or data center. So these are all good examples of a kind of private model. Even some organization, they are storing the data in the cloud. They are using it for backup purpose or archiving purpose or storage purpose. So they are using a public cloud only to archive, only to store the data and so on. Even some companies, they are doing a cloud bursting. When I say cloud bursting, whenever there is a peak load, only that time they will provision the servers in the public cloud, and once after the peak business usage is down or reduced, they will reduce the number of servers in the public cloud. So that is what they call it as cloud bursting. So you have some set of application, it will be used I mean very heavily during a particular month or a particular time in a day. So at that time itself, I mean at that time alone, you will go and expand the capacity or expand the computing resources, and once the demand is getting reduced, you will decommission those. Okay, so you have a lot of examples like this. You can use it as a data storage or disaster recovery, business continuity. You can have tiering, like your on-premises will have the database, and then the front end will be on the public cloud and so on. So these are all kind of scenarios that you can have in your hybrid cloud mechanism. Okay, so there are a lot of advantages, disadvantages. So when it comes to disadvantage, so here you need to keep on investing on your own data center in private cloud. You don't have to you have to own the hardware, you have to purchase additional licenses, additional hardware, you have to install it, set up racking, stacking, any cabling connections or any issue with your disk or memory or CPU, you have to kind of own it. You have to upgrade the server, you have to upgrade the firmware, upgrade the operating system. So you have a lot of responsibility in private cloud. So even though it is good in terms of owning and maintaining it, there are a lot of challenges, right? As a non-IT organization, it is very tough for the private cloud environment to be maintained by non-IT. But if it is an IT company, they will have options to manage it in a better way. Okay, so the next option is community cloud. Community cloud is for specific community. For example, Microsoft Azure provides you government cloud. It can be only accessed by the government entities within particular region. And so they got US government cloud, which is specific to the government organization in the US. So it is specific to community. And even a couple of years back, they deployed an educational cloud in New Zealand. Similarly, during the pandemic situation, a lot of healthcare companies have to work together in order to find the or come up with the medicine or whatever, right? So what they did is they kind of created a specific community cloud where different healthcare companies can collaborate, and once after the project is over, they will dismantle it. So community cloud is to a specific target specific community. It can be Azure US government cloud, even Azure China is a separate cloud environment. It is only for Azure China, and US government cloud is separate. And even in Singapore, they have GCC or government cloud specific to Singapore. And we also have Azure Germany. It is a separate uh, cloud. And also you have a lot of educational cloud environment and so on. So it's only for a specific community cloud. Multi-cloud is nothing but you are using multiple public cloud providers. Some applications are running on Azure, some databases are running on Oracle, some applications are running on AWS, and so on. So these are the different type of model that you are having based on the location. If the cloud is in your own data center, then it is called private cloud. If the cloud is on the public platform, if it can be accessed by the general public, then it is called public cloud. So any questions on what we have discussed?
Ashton,
Yeah.
VMware comes under which cloud exactly? Can we please?
Yeah, VMware has its own public cloud also. So VMware has a VMware Air, or a VMware has got Area and all those products. So it is a public cloud. They also have public cloud offering.
Okay. Does it come under a hybrid cloud as a virtual, right? Name only consists virtual, right?
Okay, see, VMware is predominantly a virtualization provider. So they have a product called vSphere that has been used in the industry for a very long time, right? But now VMware has got VCF, VMware Cloud Foundation. That is a kind of offering that you can deploy in your own data center to make it as a private cloud, or they are also providing offering which can be consumed through the public internet. So VMware, it's like Microsoft, Amazon. They provide you option to deploy your own private cloud environment, or they are also providing public cloud platform through which you can run the services. It is both. VMware is an organization name, right? VMware is not a product. VMware is an organization. They provide you a lot of different product. So VMware Cloud Foundation is a kind of fully, or you can call it as a software defined data center, right? It gives you SDDC manager, vSphere, NSX, vSAN. So you can deploy that in your own data center like a hyper-converged platform, and you can also have VMware product as a private cloud, and also you can directly consume resources from VMware data center like a public cloud platform. So VMware gives you all those offerings. I mean, you have to think in the same way like Microsoft is an organization, right? Microsoft is giving you Azure, which is a public cloud, and Azure Stack is again a Microsoft product, but you are deploying it in your own data center. Similarly, VMware is a company, it is an organization. They are giving you public cloud offering, as well as they have a product which you can deploy in your own data center and call that data center as a private cloud platform.
Yeah, thank you.
Also, if we can, we have Azure or AWS cloud. From that cloud, also we can procure this VMware as a service, right? For
Correct.
private
Yeah.
cloud.
So yes. So you can also very much integrate with VMware. You can also use VMware product as an option. So every provider has provided or started providing it, because like last 20 years, VMware has been evolving, right? And their virtualization product is very successful. The hypervisor that they are providing is very stable product, and you can also go and opt for their hypervisor and the management tools in the other third-party public cloud. Even Microsoft is giving you Azure VMware solution, VMware Cloud on AWS. In even GCP has got that. Oracle Data Center is providing that. Alibaba is providing that. Yeah, it's available as a combination. Yes.
Stan, based
Yeah.
on your experience, right? So
Mhm.
what 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 kind of cloud type? I mean, most of the customers are operating in the current situation, like they are going with hybrid or private cloud.
Okay. See, when it comes to small to mid-size organization, their target is to go as much as possible to the public cloud to avoid the IT data center cost and all those things. But when you talk about large organization, the Fortune 100 organization, where they have a lot of business application which are very close to their manufacturing industry or manufacturing unit, or if they have a lot of facilities where the application has to work in tandem with those factories or industrial area and so on, they are having a hybrid cloud model mostly. Okay. And companies which are very recently started, like last 5 years, 10 years, they are going with multi-cloud option because they are getting little benefits from Oracle for database. They are getting better benefits, and from Microsoft they are getting better benefits of running Microsoft Windows operating system and so on. So I would say small to mid-size organization, they are mostly targeting public cloud, and the organizations like the Fortune 100 or Fortune 500 companies where they have a lot of application which are closely working with their industry segment, like it can be a manufacturing industry or automobile industry or whatever, they are primarily going with hybrid cloud model. And companies which are modern, which has started in the last 5 to 10 years or 10 to 15 years, primarily they are adopting multi-cloud strategy. I'll give you some names actually. So I've got some examples of slides which tells you like what is the current cloud market and which companies are using which cloud and so on. So I'll give you some more briefing on that. But for
Thanks.
now, but for now, any question on cloud deployment model? You have any doubt on public, private, and hybrid?
Stan, are you able to hear me? Hello? Hello?
Yes, yes. One second, Balamurugan. Yes, I'm able
Balamurugan.
to.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. So, Stan, I have a question regarding that Cloudburst. Okay. Cloudburst,
yeah.
actually, we have that in the public cloud, right? So,
Mhm.
hybrid, when we go for the hybrid cloud, we are just make use of that existing with the public cloud. That's what it is, right? So, it is a like combination of both private and public. Okay. So, when I wanted to run something on my public end or public cloud, and I'll be using that feature, cloud bursting, right? But it is a feature of a public cloud, right? Actually.
See, cloud bursting by the name itself, it is not only for your public cloud. It can be your private cloud also. See, for example, the cloud bursting is used in multiple areas. We can use it in infrastructure as well as in application deployment also. So, if you are talking about infrastructure, so adding more servers or adding more compute capacity is kind of more computing or more virtual machine or containers. So that is what we call it as cloud bursting in infrastructure side. So you are adding more servers in the public cloud. For example, you have a private cloud data center, or you have a data center where you cannot have more virtual machines to mitigate the peak load, or if you have a big billion day sales or whatever. So at that time alone, you go and add more containers or virtual machines in the public cloud platform to mitigate that demand or the load. And whereas on the application side, you also have application deployment technique where again if you want to have more containers or whatever, you can deploy the containers either in your private cloud or in your public cloud. So it can be either on your private cloud. If you have more capacity in your on premises itself, you can go and add more systems on your premises itself rather than adding more systems on the public cloud. So it can be what is the actual dictionary meaning of cloud bursting? Cloud burst means it is a condition where there is a sudden downpour, right? Or like there is a sudden increase in load requirement and you need to balance it out. So you can handle it either in your on premises itself or you can do it on the public cloud platform.
Get you, Stan. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah.
Stan,
See,
are you able to
it
hear
like
me?
right?
Sorry.
Is it similar to auto scaling? Is it kind of the same
Kind
one,
of.
or?
Yeah. It's like auto scaling. Auto scaling is mainly within your private cloud or within your public cloud. It is kind of, yeah, we can consider that. But maybe let me tell you. Okay, I'll just give you a kind of it enables private cloud to extend its service or its, okay, to public cloud. This is the kind of standard definition that you will see in most of the case. But yeah, it's a you can also call it as cloud scaling. You can call it that way. Private getting more servers in public. So auto scaling is also similar, but it is only within your public cloud or private cloud. It's more or less a flexible scaling architecture. Okay, so you can also consider auto scaling as a similar thing, but those are different words. We use it for different scenarios.
One
Okay, I think.
question regarding the multi-cloud.
Hmm.
Uh, can I ask, or we can ask post?
Yeah. Go ahead, please.
Yeah. So if it is multi-cloud means example like if a
Mhm.
user from AWS can access the application in Azure, is it possible?
Okay, so yeah, see, there are some solutions like, for example, Azure Arc, or there are some offering which gives you management option to manage services running on different platform. Okay, but those are all still kind of work in progress. It is getting better as we progress. So you can have services running. For example, the typical use case, you can have your own. I mean, the business application can be on Microsoft Azure, and your database can be on Oracle Cloud. So
Okay.
if you ask me how the integration works or how the latency and all those things
Yeah,
are
yeah, that
addressed,
is a, yeah, again
yeah,
big
so you
topic.
have a cloud interconnect solution that is available between Microsoft and Oracle data center. This is available across the globe. They have a dedicated high speed connection between their data center in order to avail this benefit. Okay, so if you have front end in Microsoft Azure and back end in Oracle data center, they use this cloud interconnect. It is a dedicated physical connection that runs between Microsoft data center and Oracle data center. You'll have a seamless experience as a customer.
Okay,
That is a typical example we see in most of the customer deployment.
thank you.
Hello.
Yes, Mani? Yeah, go
Yeah.
ahead, Mani. And then.
Yeah. I have one basic question. Like, so my understanding, the public cloud, uh, the backend, the same hardware like Hyper-V or the ESXi server, the same hardware will be using it, and the virtual machine that security getting to the access to that multiple customers. Is it correct? Oh,
Okay, I don't know. I mean, there was a lot of disturbance on your question. Okay, I did not hear most part. Okay, but then what I heard is like I think it is a similar question that we had yesterday. So people are asking like, what is the hypervisor? What is the hardware, server hardware we are using in the public cloud data centers? So earlier, they had different choosing criterias or mechanisms. We used to have different server provider, storage provider providing their own hardware, but nowadays it is getting more and more in-house developed, in-house assembled, in-house manufactured server storage solutions. But still, you can see a lot of third-party tie-ups in Microsoft data center. See, Microsoft has got experience in running data center for last 30-35 years, right? They have been having their own data center to provide different services like Office 365, or even they had their own WSES or SCCM to provide distribute the patches or provide updates to laptops, desktops across the globe, right? So they used to have their own data center. So they used to have different tie-ups with HP or Dell or whatever vendor across the globe based on their criteria. But now Amazon, Microsoft companies who are providing public cloud offering, they have started manufacturing or assembling or doing an in-house server storage devices. Okay, but predominantly when it comes to hypervisor, it is Hyper-V in Microsoft. They are also started to provide options to host Azure VMware solution recently, and similarly in Amazon, it used to be customized Zen, and then they started using kernel virtual machine, which is another hypervisor from Linux, and they also support VMware Cloud on AWS, and they have their own in-house developed hypervisor called Nitro hypervisor. Okay, so let's do one thing. Okay, we are at 7:15, right? So we'll take a quick 10 minutes break, and then we'll continue on how the current cloud market is doing, and also we have to discuss about the disadvantage, right? Okay, let's do one thing. Okay, let's continue for maybe 10 more minutes, and then we can no, we'll take the break and come back. Sorry, let me stop the recording.
This conference will now be recorded.
Yeah, we'll resume the session. So the last cloud related basic topic is around the disadvantages. Okay, so when it comes to cloud, not everything is available, right? There are some challenges in public cloud also. There are some disadvantages in cloud also. So if you want to understand that from my aspect, I would say most of you will think about the information, data security, and all those things, right? So that is the first thing that comes to the mind when it comes to public cloud and data center, because you are moving all your application and the associated data to a third-party data center, right? So automatically the data is getting insecure, or I would say the data privacy is getting becoming a challenge. Okay, for example, if you have your own laptop or your own internal or like USB storage where you are storing your data, okay, so it is only with you. Okay, so no one else is going to get control of it until they get access to your device or your hard drive or whatever. But then, for example, if you are storing your pictures or your data in the public cloud platform, like for example, Google Photos or Google Drive, or either you are storing it in public or private access, still you are going and storing your own data, personal data in someone else data center. So you never know whether they are taking the data backup into some other cloud locations, or they are storing it in a different region in order to bring high availability and reliability and so on. So data is getting into someone else's hand. So there are more chances of information getting leaked or data getting leaked. So the data privacy is a challenge there. See, one side definitely that is a challenge, but on the other side, the provider, the service provider organization, they have a legal policy, or like they have a kind of customer terms and conditions where they will never um, get into the data or get into the information of the customer. If they try to do that, if they try to tamper it, or if they are found guilty of it, then no one else is going to use their product. See, similarly, like for example, if you take your mobile phones, why most of the people are going with Apple phones? The reason is like they are a renowned service provider. Even though they have the ability to kind of take the data from your phone, or take the data from any devices that they are manufacturing, their terms and condition tells that they should not go and recover the data, or they never do that, even with all government pressure, or if they are also legally put into pressure, they never do that. So that's the kind of commitment, or that's the kind of terms and conditions that they sign up with the customer, so they don't get into the actual data tampering or whatever. So the data is into good hands, but still your data is out of your data center. So I mean, in easier words, I would say I have a personal information that I know. If I start sharing it with someone else, like person 2 or person 3, the data is getting spread now. So the person 2 can share that important information to someone else also. The person 3 can share that information to someone else also. So if your data is moving on outside of yourself or outside of your control, then the privacy is getting reduced. Okay, that is the disadvantage, I would say, primarily. Then the control, what you are getting, so on the business asset, so whatever on the back end, the infrastructure or the storage, the servers, the virtualization layer, the virtual machine itself. So all those are being controlled by third party. So you are getting less control there, and then you have to be you will have to be running on the latest versions when it comes to the public cloud. So in an on-premises, you have whatever operating system that you need. It can be 32-bit operating system, it can be Windows 2003 or 2008, but in the public cloud, you cannot deploy those older 32-bit operating systems or N-4 or N-5 operating systems. So you can only deploy the latest application version, latest operating system version, latest edition, and so on. So it only supports 64-bit and maybe like N-1. N is the current version, N-1 or N-2, and so on. So it doesn't support very old unsupported version. And the next challenge, I would say, is the vendor relationship management. So that is a very typical challenge that we see. Okay, so for example, you might have your applications running on Microsoft Windows, and you might have your database and Oracle database. So and some business application might be running on Red Hat Linux, for which you have to purchase a subscription, and your cloud platform will be managed with Amazon. So now you have to talk to Amazon, you have to talk to Microsoft for Windows operating system license, you have to work with Red Hat for the subscription handling, you have to work with Oracle for database licensing and any troubleshooting or any support related tickets. So the contracts, the contacts that you need to maintain, so those are all becoming a kind of a challenge. Okay, so you have to have a separate incident management team or a major incident management team who has to facilitate all the vendor relationship management. So when you are having multiple touch points, the complexity of the issue or the complexity of the application becomes much more difficult, right? The next one, you are having a very high dependency on the provider. See, for whatever issues or whatever challenges, performance or cost increase or any challenges in terms of identity or whatever, you are having a very high dependency on the provider. So if you want to come out of the data center, you cannot easily come out. You have to have a lot of help from the Microsoft or Amazon. See, moving into their cloud, they provide you a lot of tools. See, for example, I would say even in your on-premises, if you want to migrate from your physical server to virtual machine, VMware provides you converter, which is a very easy tool to use. You just have to select the server, and then it migrates all the data to a virtual machine. But then if you want to move out of the virtual machine and go back to the physical server, they don't provide you tools. Similarly, migrating into cloud or migrating your data into cloud, it is pretty straightforward, pretty easy. There are a lot of tools, there are a lot of mechanisms, there are a lot of APIs that are available. But reverting it back, failing back to the on-premises, it's not that easy. So dependency, it is getting increased on the provider as we move along. And in the public cloud scenario, you are accessing all the resources through what? Through internet. So you always need to have a stable, adequate network connection or internet connectivity. So all your activity, so for all your customers or all your end users, they are all connecting to the application or resources through the internet. So nowadays, the internet has evolved a lot. You have a lot of countries where 5G is already enabled. So there are a lot of bandwidth. People are working from home in even remote villages nowadays. The network has become more stable, but then still there are chances if there is a natural disaster or if there is a kind of global outage, and all the business application will not be accessible. So there is a very high reliability on, I mean, we are highly relying on internet connections. We are all the access is going through the internet connectivity, and automatically the internet charges are also coming up, right? So next one, I would say, like, not just the internet connection, even the network cost, the redundancy that you need to have for the connections. So you need to get very high bandwidth. So higher the bandwidth, higher the charges, right? So increasing cost is definitely there. So next one, I would say the suppliers factor. We are relying upon them, the vendor relationship management, the vendor lock-in. So you will hear this vendor lock-in term a lot. So I'll say what exactly we are talking about vendor lock-in here. See, you might have a business application, okay, that is currently running on, I would say, Oracle database. It is an enterprise database. It has been in the market for a very long time. So it is a proven solution for your business application. But then providers like Amazon or Microsoft, they will say, if you are running this on AWS RDS or AWS Postgres database, it will be 10 times cheaper, and then you will get the same performance, you will get all features and functionalities and so on, and then they will make you migrate to their own offering. Okay. Similarly, you will have a business application running on a different platform or a runtime. They will say that AWS Nitro hypervisor gives you much better performance and so on, and you will start migrating all your resources into the provider's offering, like EC2 instances or AWS RDS or AWS Fargate container solutions and so on. So over the period, if you look back, you will see all your application has started running on the provider's own application offering, runtime, databases, and so on. So you will start locking in all your application to the provider's control. And if you want to get out of that, then definitely you need a lot of support from them. And whatever you are taking it back, the data transfer out of their data center is chargeable for every single GB. Okay, for example, if you have migrated 100 terabytes to Amazon data center or Microsoft data center, if you want to take that 100 TB out back to your own data center or outside of their data center, you have to pay for the complete data transfer out charges. So there are a lot of restrictions, not just the data size alone, right? Even moving out of their RDS solution to your own on-premises database or application, it is going to be a huge challenge, right? So that is one thing. And there are chances of unpredicted cost. Yesterday I talked about this unpredicted cost. So there might be a lot of features, functionalities that the offering will provide. For example, if you take security, they will give you shield, they will give you web access firewall, it will protect DDoS attacks and all those things. If they will tell a lot of things. And while designing, you will tend to select a lot of features, functionalities, which is not really needed for your customer application. And when you're going and choosing those options, it is just a click of a button. You can just say enable shield or enable WAF. So it will give you protection. There is no doubt in that. But then whether it is really needed for your application, whether your application is talking to the internet users, or whether it is only intranet or within your public cloud, it is being accessed. So you need to think twice before enabling a particular feature or a functionality. You need to talk to the business owner, you need to talk to the application owner, understand whether they need that feature or functionality, then decide on adding those additional things. So there are a lot of chances, there will be a lot of unpredicted cost. And see, every provider, manufacturers or sorry, any provider comes up with an offering or a solution to make money, right? See, for example, if you are a company who is having antivirus solution, without virus, there is no need for antivirus, right? Or there is no need for anti-malware. So where exactly the viruses are coming out, where exactly the malwares are coming out? It might be a kind of indirectly funded viruses from the same organization. We never know, right? Similarly, if there is a feature or functionality from a service provider, when people will start using those features or functionality? Only when there is a business challenge, or only when they see a lot of outages or a lot of issues, a lot of revenue or a lot of loss in their business. When there is a financial loss, people will automatically start using those features, people will start using those products, functionalities. So it's all like marketplace, right? It's all business. So we never know. As a design engineer, as a design architect, you have to be very clear on what exactly the business needs, and you have to select based on the right high availability requirement, SLA, uptime, and so on. You need to consider all those things. You need to factor all those things and then decide on which product to use, which feature to use, which functionality to use. Otherwise, there are a lot of chances that you might end up paying a lot of money without a real need for your business application, right? So I would say there are few more points, but since we are on the first week of talking about cloud, I don't want to list too many points, but there is a definite learning curve, right? For every person, even all of you here, you want to learn cloud because your organizations, your customers have started adopting Azure or AWS or different cloud platform. Definitely there is a training that is needed, there is a learning curve, there is an investment, there is a steep learning curve that has to be there. So I'll just limit it only to 10 points, okay? So any other points you would like to add, or you see that as a bigger challenge?
Uh, I have one question. Like in on-prem, we have a kind of crisis like a vulnerability attack and the other
Mhm.
things, right? Is it possible, like in a cloud, also we have the same situation, or
Same certification, huh?
no situation? Like
Oh,
in
situation, yeah, yeah,
on-prem,
yeah.
we have some situation vulnerability attack and other things, right?
Yeah, yeah.
The
See, the
ransomware and
chances,
other things.
yeah, the chances of vulnerabilities or flaws, security flaws is higher in your on-premises because you tend to use certain hardware, certain operating system, certain application for a longer duration. So your application might get legacy. There will be a lot of loopholes. There will be a lot of application which are still very traditional, and that
So when
makes your
compared to
application.
on-prem, is there less chance in cloud? You're telling?
Yeah, it is comparatively lesser in public cloud because public cloud, they mostly upgrade, update, they only allow latest operating systems, latest application versions, and so on. And it's not because of the public cloud by itself, but I mean the way they practice the customers to use or upgrade to the latest version, it reduces those vulnerabilities or security flaws. It is comparatively less, but there are
Okay.
still chances. There are still attack vectors that are possible.
Okay, another one question in regarding the downtime. The
Mm-hmm,
kind of crisis we can face sometime in on-prem.
mm-hmm,
So if any data center in Azure or AWS, if any data center crash, so
mm-hmm,
that point of time, how this RTO will maintains, is it because in every customer we have the contract, right? Like we have
mm-hmm,
99%, 90%, 99% availability of some kind of a
mm-hmm,
contract agreement, right? So
mm-hmm,
same like in cloud, if you're procuring in cloud,
mm-hmm.
so is it maintainable, or is it when compared to on-prem, is it more the downtime is different when compared to on-prem?
See, when it comes to public cloud, the
I,
service
I'm
level
I'm
of
just thinking about
availability.
the recovery time of this RTO is different
Got
when
it, got
compared to
it,
on-prem.
got it, got it. Understood, understood. So, see, okay. So we are having a lot of English words there, right? Resiliency, reliability, and availability. So availability is more about service level availability. SLA, SLA is nothing but your uptime. And the word that you used is RTO, recovery time objective, in which is mostly used in disaster recovery and backup scenarios. So see, I would explain it on a very high level. The reason I do it on a very high level because we are going to discuss that particular thing again and again, even during the backup class. If you look at the backup topic here, we will be discussing about RPO, RTO there, and again during the migration and DR, we will be discussing about RTO and RPO again in
Okay,
that topic also. So there are two things, right? RPO and RTO, recovery point objective and recovery time objective. So in your on-premises, based on the infrastructure or based on the redundancy component. For example, if you have multiple redundant data center locations, then you can go for high availability using the redundant components. But then if you have multiple backup data stored, even on the redundancy side, if you are having backups on your local disks, it is easy to recover. If you have backups on your local tapes on the same location, it is easy to bring back the tapes and then put it in the tape library and recover it. And if you are having an offshore or offsite data backup, or tapes, then you have to ship the tape back, and you have to put the tape back in your tape library and then recover it. So the time is very higher. And if you don't have redundancy in a secondary data center, if you have an option, then you can fail over to a secondary data center and continue to use that service. So recovering a failure is much easier if you have redundant options, or redundancy, if the redundancy is high. In public cloud, as I told you yesterday, it is all tier 4 and tier 4 plus data center. So redundancy is available at most in all the components: power, your internet connection, server, rack, and whatever that makes up your IT data center. Almost all the components are having N+3 redundancy. So when you have more redundancy, you can solution your backup or disaster recovery or business continuity planning can be much better. So you need the redundancy first, redundant component first. With public cloud, you have very high level of data centers or tier of data centers. They are tier 4 or tier 4 plus. All the physical redundancy is available. Even if you solution it better, you can achieve 99.995s or high availability, and similarly you can recover from failure very quickly. Okay, either if you're talking about recovering from the backup, or doing an online switch over to a different data center or a different server, it is much quicker. Okay, the recovery time objective can be much easily met in public cloud compared to your on premises. I know your
Okay.
question was more
Thank
specific
you.
to recovery time objective, but I used some other words just to
No, I
ensure that.
just looking in yeah, I'm just
Yeah.
looking when it comes to this disadvantage. I'm just
Oh,
looking when
okay.
compared to on-prem whether it is a
Mm.
disadvantage or
No,
advantage.
it is not a
That's all.
disadvantage. Definitely, you get a lot of advantages because the cloud economy of scale, public cloud economy of scale is very high. They have a lot of
Okay.
different region, data center, availability zone. They have multiple mechanism to provide you resiliency. So it's definitely RTO is better in public cloud.
Okay, okay, thank you. And one more last question. Like this, you said this unpredictable cost, right? By
Yeah.
default, when we procuring any services or this applications,
Mhm.
so by default, I mean, we need to keen watching this, enabling this
Mm.
option, or by default, it
No,
will
see,
include all the features.
the default options are somewhat okay. Okay, but if
Uh,
you are creating a virtual machine and if they are giving you a button option to select it, then you have to think about it. For example, they will give you an option to they will ask
no,
you
my
whether you
question
need.
is, no, my question is, by default options when we select during the time of any services. So later point we can check the cost and we can go and uncheck the futures or only thing is during the time of selection. Forget about the by default other things extra features that we selected. So that is costable or only this one
Okay.
default
Yes, Hazel.
features.
So see, I'll make it so simple. See here, when you are deploying a server, by default they give you basic monitoring, which means they will monitor CPU, network, and some more metrics. Okay, so that is enabled by default. You don't have to really worry. But then they will give you option to enable enhanced monitoring. Okay, as an option. Okay, if you go and check this box, it will add you more cost because it is going to monitor your memory consumption and it is going to add more metrics, which is not available by default. So the default things, whatever they are giving you, it is part of your virtual machine cost or your EBS storage cost or whatever encryption is. If they are enabling by default, it is part of your product, it is part of your service, it is part of your tool. Okay, but then if they are giving you an extra option that you are enabling or checking that box, then you have to double think on that. And see, you can revert it back. Later you can understand this is adding more cost, which customer is really not demanding it, and you can roll back or you can revert most of the options. But some options, it will give you a warning. Once you enable it, you cannot disable or you cannot come back. So those options you have to double confirm before enabling it. I mean, that's a
Okay,
good
okay.
small example. You'll get to understand how it works on compute, network, database, storage, because different offering has different limitations and advantages. You'll get to understand that. But yeah, when something is given as a default option part of your product, you have to go with that. There is no option. But if there is a checkbox, there is a additional feature or functionality, then think about it. If something cannot be rolled back, double confirm before enabling it.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. And
No problem.
migrating from one cloud to another cloud is a real challenge, right? I mean, the service and other things is
No, it will become easier as we
and compared to
progress,
on-prem.
because see, as we progress, it should become easier, because everyone wants to take other people business, right? So definitely Amazon want to have a good customer, and Microsoft want to have all the Fortune 100 companies with them. So everyone is doing business to have a good customer base, right? And they will definitely facilitate easier option. Nowadays, you have options to migrate directly from Amazon RDS to Azure database. They give you a tool. And similarly, they have options to migrate easily from Azure virtual machine to EC2 instance. Similarly, you have tools to migrate containers. So tools are coming up, features are coming up. So it is
You
between
mean
cloud.
native tools they are providing nowadays?
Correct. Yeah, they have started providing a lot of native tools for heterogeneous and homogeneous migration. Yes. You'll
Okay.
see some
Thank you.
examples also, practical live sessions. I'll show you how to migrate a database, how to migrate an application, how to migrate a server, how to migrate data. All those things I'll show you in live practical.
Hey,
Yeah.
Sam.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, my point is regarding this vendor relationship management. Sam,
Yes.
don't you think like this is? I think this is will be a much more problem on on-prem as well, because, like, for
Yeah.
example, let's just say we have let's just
Mm,
say we have an on-prem production issue.
mm,
We have a
mm,
server from Dell, a switch from
mm,
Cisco, added to a net storage from NetApp. We have to
mm.
manage that. On top of that, this will also be an extra overhead. So I think
True.
this
True.
is a
Yeah.
common point, right, across both
It is a
private and.
kind of common point. See, I would agree to you, Nikhil. Yeah. So see, the most part, private cloud, it is much more complex, because we need to manage with hardware vendors, as you said, for server, storage, network, and there are other firewall devices, and even much more. You have to maintain your data center. UPS, racks, batteries, whatnot, right? There are a lot of things to handle. There is a lot of contractual obligation, contact relationship that you need to maintain. But the cloud, there is public cloud, there is a lot of flexibility. Okay, they give you option to host your database in Oracle. They give you option to host your application in different data center. I mean, Microsoft Azure data center. And yeah, so here it is a challenge, but in on-premises also it is a that challenge does exist. Yeah. I would agree, Nikhil. Yeah, even in on-prem, there is a vendor relationship management which we need to take care of.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah. Okay, so I think we are good. Okay, Bala, I'm not able to hear you, Bala, but there was a lot of noise from your side. Okay, you can better use the chat, Bala. Okay, so what I'll do now is, so since we have got only 7 more minutes, we'll just see what you have understood from the last 2 days, and then there are some more topics that we were supposed to discuss today. We were supposed to discuss how the current Indian IT market is when it comes to cloud support strategy, and also how is the current cloud market. So these two topics are still pending. I'll take maybe 10-15 minutes on next Saturday to cover that up. And let's have a quick few questions to ensure that you are understanding the concepts in the right way. So yeah, let's see. So what is cloud computing? Can you try and define now? Because we defined, or we had at least tried defining it yesterday.
So on-demand delivery
Yeah,
of IT
that is an interesting word,
systems.
right? Yeah, on demand and pay you go. These are the two important words. Option 4. What is another name of on-premises deployment?
Private cloud.
Private cloud, right?
Private,
Yes,
Private cloud.
AWS.
private. Yeah, private cloud. Let's skip this question. Again, it is the same definition, on demand delivery. Okay. So whenever you have a question, okay, there will be some bold letters or some letters that will be highlighted. you have to be very careful when you see some uppercase words or characters. You need to understand that you only want to manage application and data. Okay, which type of cloud computing model you have to go?
Pass.
Yeah,
Infra.
platform as a service.
Pass,
No,
pass,
no,
pass.
platform as a service. Yeah. What is the pricing model of cloud computing?
Yes, you go price.
Pay as you go pricing. Yeah, yeah, pay as you go pricing. So which of the following is not an advantage of cloud computing?
Trade capital with
Yeah, no, no, no. See, that is an example.
Train
That
your
is an
employees.
advantage.
train your
Yeah,
employee list.
correct. No companies. Yeah, yeah. This is the answer because no companies will say go and train your employees less. It is not a advantage. Okay, so rest of them are advantage. See, what you can do is in some questions you can go with elimination mechanism. So when you say elimination, you can try to see like whether this is an advantage. Okay, going global in minute is an advantage. Trading capital operational expense is an advantage. Stop spending money on your maintaining the data center is an advantage. So here question is what is not an advantage? So this is the right answer. Which of the following is not one of the 5 characteristics of cloud computing?
Code agent to
Yeah, dedicated support agent to help you deploy application. They don't do that. Okay, by default, you have to go and get the support model enabled in order to get that. So we'll talk about the support plans
But if we are
in
enabling any application and we have stuck up in some time means we'll raise a case, right? Support case. They
correct,
will help
correct.
on
So
it,
for
right?
that, we need to have a support plan. Okay, so by default, it is not the default option that is available. You have to purchase developer plan, or you need to get a business plan or an enterprise plan in order to have a dedicated support people. Okay, so next one, a company would like to benefit from the advantages of the public cloud, but would like to keep sensitive asset in its own infrastructure. Which model is that?
Hybrid.
Hybrid model, right? You have a private and a public. Yeah. What is cloud computing? Delivery of computing service of the core infrastructure. This one. Yeah. So this option, right? Then next one, which cloud model uses some data center focusing on providing cloud services to anyone that wants them, and some data center that are focused on single customer?
Multi-cloud.
Multi-cloud.
It
Multi-cloud.
is hybrid
Oh,
cloud.
it's a hybrid
It is a
cloud.
kind of answer. Yeah, it is hybrid cloud. Yeah. According to shared responsibility model, which cloud service type places the most responsibility on the customer?
Platform as a service.
Infrastructure.
Infrastructure service and platform.
Infrastructure.
IaaS.
Yeah, IaaS. Because in this model, the customer has more responsibility. So we need to manage the OS, patching, middleware, database, and so on. So which type of scaling involves adding or removing resources such as virtual machine or container?
Vertical scaling.
Horizontal.
Horizontal scaling. Horizontal scaling is adding more virtual machine containers and so on, whereas vertical scaling is adding more CPU memory on the same hardware.
No,
Which
that is
cloud service
considered
type
as
is
resource, right? CPU and memory.
true? That is what we call it as vertical. See here they have mentioned, right, virtual machine or containers in
Oh,
bracket.
okay, okay. I got it, got it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which cloud type is most suited to a lift and shift migration from on-premises to a cloud deployment? Lift and shift is the key here.
IA,
It is the
IAS.
yeah
IAS
infrastructure
is
as a
the
service.
Yes.
Yeah, right. Which what type of cloud service type would a finance and expense tracking solution typically be in?
software as a
Platform.
service.
Yeah,
Software as a
software as
service.
a service. Yeah, that is right. So you have Concur, your Workday, or like SAP, and all those things, right? So it is now available as a service. Okay, so this is what we were discussing yesterday and today. I think some of you are very quick in answering. Maybe you can go through the sessions. If you have some doubts, feel free to reach out to me. So we are done with today's session from my side. But if you have some doubts, if you have made some notes to ask me, people who want to ask it in English can go first, and then I'll listen for the questions in Tamil later. If you don't have questions, thank you for joining. We'll catch up next Saturday at 5:30.
Is that okay if we go through the session and ask for the question?
Okay, இப்ப தமிழ்ல கேளுங்க. ராஜா கேளுங்க ராஜா.
எனக்கு ஒரே கொஸ்டின் தான். இப்போ வந்து AWS பப்ளிக் கிளவுட் யூஸ் பண்றீங்கனாலே அது வந்து பிரைவேட் மாடல்ல வராதுல்ல கண்டிப்பா.
ஓ சாரி ராஜா, நான் இவரு வெங்கட்டோட லைன் டிஸ்டர்பன்ஸ் அதிகமா இருந்தது, so I did not listen properly. திருப்பி சொல்லுங்க. சாரி.
Azure and AWS இந்த மாதிரி பப்ளிக் கிளவுட்ஸ் ப்ரொவைட் பண்றாங்க இல்லையா? ஸோ இவங்க ப்ரொவைட் பண்ற இந்த கிளவுட் பப்ளிக் கிளவுடோட மாடல் இருக்கு இல்லையா? ஸோ இதுல வந்து பிரைவேட் கிளவுடோட மாடல் வந்து கண்டிப்பா வராது. அப்படிதான்.
ஆமா, பிரைவேட் கிளவுடோட மாடல் வந்து ஃபுல்லா வராது. பட் ஏன் வருதுன்னு சில பேர் கன்ஃபியூஸ் ஆகுறாங்க அப்படின்னா, இப்ப ரீசெண்ட் டேஸ்ல வந்து அவங்க வந்து டெடிகேட்டட் ஹோஸ்ட் வந்து உங்களுடைய செப்பரேட் நெட்வொர்க் தனியா கிரியேட் பண்ணி ஒரு விபிசினா என்னன்னா ஒரு தனி நெட்வொர்க். ஸோ அதுல வந்து பாத்தீங்கன்னா உங்களுக்குன்னு டெடிகேட்டடா ஹோஸ்ட் கிரியேட் பண்ணி தரது, அந்த மாதிரி சொல்யூஷனிங் ஆஃபரிங்லாம் வர ஆரம்பிக்குது. ஸோ அதுதான் அவங்க வந்து பிரைவேட் கிளவுட் வித்தின் பப்ளிக் கிளவுட்ன்ற மாதிரி கன்சிடர் பண்றாங்க. பட் இட் இஸ் கைண்ட் ஆஃப் ஓகே அண்டர்ஸ்டாண்டிங் தான். ஏன்னா பேர்லயே வந்து வர்ச்சுவல் பிரைவேட் கிளவுட் வித்தின் பப்ளிக் கிளவுட் கிரியேட் பண்ணி அதுல டெடிகேட்டட் ஹோஸ்ட் பண்றோம். பட் பை டிஃபால்ட் 95% வந்து யாரும் அப்படி பண்றது இல்லை. ரொம்ப லிமிட்டடா வந்து ஒரு 5 to 10% ஆஃப் த கஸ்டமர் வந்து அப்படி ட்ரை பண்ண ஆரம்பிக்கிறாங்க. ஏன்னா அவங்களுக்கு வந்து அந்த லீகல் செக்யூரிட்டி ரெக்யர்மெண்ட் இருக்கு. அவங்களுடைய அப்ளிகேஷன் வந்து இன்னொரு டெனன்ட் கூட இன்னொரு கஸ்டமருடைய அப்ளிகேஷன் கூட அதே ஹார்ட்வேர்ல ரன் பண்ணக்கூடாதுன்ற ரெக்யர்மெண்ட் இருக்கு. ஸோ அதனால அவங்க வந்து டெடிகேட்டடா சர்வர் வாங்கி அவங்க ரன் பண்றாங்க.
இது வந்து ஒரு ஸ்பெஷல் கேஸ்ன்ற மாதிரி நம்ம எடுத்துக்கலாம்.
ஆமாமா, கரெக்ட். ஆமா, ரொம்ப ஸ்பெஷல் கேஸா தான் அது நம்ம கன்சிடர் பண்ணோம். அது ரொம்ப ரெகுலர் யூஸ் கேஸ் கிடையாது. ஆமா.
ஓகே ஓகே சார். எனக்கு இன்னொரு டவுட் சார். இப்போ அந்த ஹைபிரிட் அண்ட் மல்டி இது இருக்கு இல்லைங்களா, ரெண்டு டைப் இருக்கு. ஸோ இது வந்து எனக்கு கொஞ்சம் கன்ஃபியூசிங்கா இருக்கு சார். ஏன்னா அந்த மல்டிக்கும் ஹைபிரிட்டுக்கும் சிமிலரா தான் இருக்கிற மாதிரி எனக்கு.
ஆமா. ஸோ இது வந்து ஹைபிரிட் கிளவுட்ன்றது ஆன் ப்ரெமைசஸ் பிரைவேட் கிளவுட் பிளஸ் பப்ளிக் கிளவுட். இது வந்து பிரைவேட் பிளஸ் பப்ளிக். வேறஸ் மல்டி கிளவுட்ன்றது பப்ளிக் பிளஸ் பப்ளிக், அமேசான் பிளஸ் Azure பிளஸ் AWS ஆர் Azure பிளஸ் Oracle, அந்த மாதிரி பப்ளிக், ரெண்டு பப்ளிக் கிளவுட்.
ஓகேங்க, எனக்கு இதான் கொஞ்சம் கொஸ்டின் இருந்தது. எனக்கு இன்னொரு சின்ன ரிக்வெஸ்ட் இருக்கு. இப்போ நீங்க எனக்கு நோட்ஸ் கொடுக்குறீங்க இல்லையா, அப்போ டைப் பண்றீங்க, நான் புரிஞ்சுக்கலாம். ஓகேங்களா? ஸோ இதே மாதிரி பேசிக்கா என்ன செட் ஆஃப் நோட்ஸ் என்னாச்சும் உங்ககிட்ட இருக்குங்களா? ஏன்னா அதை நாங்க கோ த்ரூ பண்ற மாதிரி, அதாவது எப்படின்னா இப்போ
ஆக்சஸ் வந்து எனேபிள் பண்றேன்ல, நான் உங்களுக்கு வந்து அது கொடுத்துருக்கேன். நீங்க ஆல்ரெடி என்கிட்ட கூகுள் மெயில் ஐடி கொடுத்துருந்தீங்க அப்படின்னா நான் ஆல்ரெடி அதுக்கு ஆக்சஸ் எனேபிள் பண்ணிருப்பேன். நேத்தோடைய செஷன் நோட்ஸ் வந்து உங்களுக்கு பார்க்க முடியும். ஆமா, ஸோ அதே மாதிரி இந்த செஷன் நோட்ஸ் வந்து ஆக்சஸ் பண்ணிட்டு இருப்பேன்.
இல்ல நான் என்ன கேட்கறேன்னா, இப்போ வந்து இப்போ டெப்ளாய்மெண்ட் மாடல் அப்படின்னு சொல்லி இந்த மாடல்லாம் லிஸ்ட் அவுட் பண்ணிட்டீங்க. ஸோ இங்க வந்து நீங்க ஜஸ்ட் ஒரு சிம்பிளா ஒரு நோட்ஸ் கொடுக்குறீங்க. இதை நோட்ஸ் இப்போ ஸோ அண்டர்ஸ்டாண்டிங் பர்ஸ்பெக்டிவ் ஓகே. இப்போ நம்ம வந்து ஒரு சென்டென்ஸ் ஓரியன்டா நம்ம இது வந்து சொல்லணும், இல்ல இதை வந்து நம்ம அண்டர்ஸ்டாண்ட் பண்ணிக்கணும் அப்படின்னா இதுக்கு ஒரு கிளியர் நோட்ஸ் தேவை இல்லைங்களா?
அந்த மாதிரி நான் என்ன பண்றேன் அப்படின்னா, அபிஷியல் ட்ரைனிங் கரிக்குலம் இருக்கு, கரிக்குலம் மெட்டீரியல் இருக்கு. அதை வந்து நான் இபுக்கா கொடுக்குறேன். ஈவன் நீங்க வந்து இஃப் யூ வாண்ட் டு டேக் இன்டர்னல், உங்களுக்கு வந்து கார்பரேட்ல ஏதாவது ட்ரைனிங் எடுக்கணும்னு இன்ட்ரெஸ்ட் இருக்கு, இல்லை நீங்க வந்து அதை ஃபாலோ பண்ணி இன்னும் பெட்டரா ஷேர் பண்ணணும்னா அதுக்கு நான் இபுக் கொடுக்குறேன். அபிஷியல் மைக்ரோசாஃப்டோடைய கரிக்குலம் வந்து இபுக்கா கொடுத்துருவோம். அதை நீங்க லேர்ன் பண்ணலாம் அதை பார்த்து.
ஓகே ஓகே சரி ஓகே. எனக்கு அது மாதிரி கொஞ்சம் புக்ஸ் ஏதாச்சும் கொடுங்க.
அது இருக்கு, அது ஆக்சஸ் கொடுக்கலாம். அது வந்து பாத்தீங்கன்னா நம்ம இபுக்ல இருக்கும் அது.
ஓகே. ஆனா ரைட் நவ இப்போ நம்மளோட ஸ்கோப் வந்து பாத்தீங்கன்னா லிமிட்டடா இருக்கு, டைம் லிமிட்டடானால. சோ இந்த நோட்ஸ் வைஸ் போறது இப்போ ரைட் நவ இஸ் கரெக்ட். ஓகேங்களா? லேட்டர் ஆன் எனக்கு கொஞ்சம் டைம் இருக்கு, கொஞ்சம் எக்ஸ்பாண்ட் பண்ணி படிக்கணும், இல்ல கொஞ்சம் பெட்டரா படிக்கணும், அந்த நோட்ஸ் நான் யூஸ் பண்ணி படிச்சுக்கிறேன் சார்.
ஃபைன் ராஜா, தட் இஸ் ஃபைன், அண்டர்ஸ்டுட்.
ஓகே, थैंक यू சார்.
தேங்க் யூ ராஜா.
ஹலோ சார்.
சுப்பிரமணி கேளுங்க
சார். இப்போ நம்ம நெட்வொர்க்கிங் வந்து இப்போ அந்த கிளவுட்ல மானிட்டரிங் வந்து அஜூர்ல பண்ணிக்கலாமா பப்ளிக் கிளவுட்ல? இப்போ ஏதாவது டிவைஸ் வந்து சர்வர்ஸ் அந்த மாதிரி இதுன்னா ஆப்ஷனாலிட்டி இருக்கா?
ஏதாவது மானிட்டரிங் பண்ணலாமான்னு கேக்குறீங்களா?
இல்ல இப்போ நம்ம டேட்டா சென்டர்ல வச்சிருக்கக்கூடிய நெட்வொர்க் அண்ட் சர்வர்ஸை மானிட்டரிங் பண்றதுக்கான இது Azure ஃபீச்சர்ல இருக்குதா பப்ளிக்
ஆமா ஆமா
கிளவுட்ல?
கொடுக்குறாங்க. சரி அங்க
டேட்டா
வந்து பாத்தீங்க அப்படின்னா இப்ப அஜூரை பொறுத்த வரைக்கும் அஜூரோட ஆர்க்ன்ற சொல்யூஷனே என்னன்னா நீங்க கம்ப்ளீட்டா வந்து ஒரு இடத்துல இருந்தே வந்து உங்களுக்கு மல்டிபிள் கிளவுட்ல இருக்கிற சர்வர்ஸ், உங்களுடைய பிரைவேட் கிளவுட், உங்களுடைய ஆன் ப்ரமைசஸ் டேட்டா சென்டர்ல இருக்கிற சிஸ்டம்ஸ் எல்லாமே வந்து மேனேஜ் பண்ற மாதிரி நிறைய ஃபீச்சர்ஸ் வந்துட்டு இருக்கு. இப்போ ஈவன் நம்ம வந்து ஒரு சில லேப் பார்ப்போம், எப்படி நம்ம வந்து மைக்ரோசாஃப்டோடைய ப்ராடக்ட்ஸை வச்சு ஆன் பிரேம் அண்ட் பப்ளிக் கிளவுட்ல இருக்கிற சர்வர்ஸ் அப்ளிகேஷன் இதெல்லாம் வந்து மேனேஜ் பண்றது, பேட்ச் பண்றது, மானிட்டர் பண்றது, பேக்கப் எடுத்து வைக்கிறதுன்றதெல்லாம் பார்ப்போம். அது இருக்கு ஆக்சுவலா நிறைய டூல்ஸ் இருக்கு, நிறைய ப்ராடக்ட்ஸ் இருக்கு விச் இஸ் மல்டி கிளவுட்.
இன்னொரு கொஸ்டின் சார், இப்போ நம்ம ஃபண்டமெண்டல் எக்ஸாமுக்கு இந்த மாதிரி பேசிக்கான கிளவுட் நாலேஜ் இருந்தால் மட்டும்
இல்ல இல்ல இப்ப இந்த ஃபர்ஸ்ட் ரெண்டு கிளாஸ் 3 கிளாஸ்லயே வந்து ஃபண்டமெண்டல்ஸ்க்கான கண்டென்ட் நம்மளும் கவர் பண்ணிடுவோம். நான் அது இல்லாம ஒரு லிங்க் நேற்று கொடுத்தேன் இல்லைங்களா, அதை நீங்க வந்து 14th and 15th அட்டன் பண்ணீங்க அப்படின்னா இந்த மந்த் எண்டுக்குள்ள நீங்க ஃபண்டமெண்டல் எக்ஸாம் முடிச்சிடலாம். ஸோ ஃபண்டமெண்டல் எக்ஸாம் முடிச்சிட்டீங்கன்னா உங்களுக்கே ஒரு கான்ஃபிடன்ஸ் வர ஆரம்பிச்சிடும், ஒரு இன்ட்ரெஸ்ட் இன்க்ரீஸ் ஆக ஆரம்பிக்கும். தென் நீங்க என்ன பண்ணலாம் அப்படின்னா நெட்வொர்க் இன்ஜினியர் எக்ஸாமோ இல்ல வந்து செக்யூரிட்டி ஃபண்டமெண்டல்ஸோ இல்ல வந்து அஜூரோடைய அட்மினிஸ்ட்ரேட்டர் எக்ஸாமோ அடுத்த ஒரு 2 months செப்டம்பர் அக்டோபர்ல டார்கெட் பண்ணி முடிக்கிற மாதிரி இருந்தா அட்லீஸ்ட் ஒரு 2-3 எக்ஸாம்ஸ் முடிக்கும் போது உங்களுக்கும் ஒரு பேரலா ஒரு இது கிடைக்கும். ஸோ அந்த எக்ஸாம் எழுதும்போது நிறைய கொஸ்டின்ஸ் படிப்பீங்க, கொஸ்டின்ஸ் அந்த டவுட்ஸை வந்து இங்க வந்து கேட்பீங்க. ஸோ இட் வில் பி மச் யூஸ்ஃபுல். இந்த செஷன் வந்து உங்களுக்கு அட் த எண்ட் பெனிஃபிஷியலா இருக்கணுன்றதான் என்னோட ஐடியா. ஸோ அதனால ஃபண்டமெண்டல்ஸ் எப்போ எவ்வளவு சீக்கிரம் முடிக்கிறீங்களோ முடிங்க இந்த மந்த். தென் அடுத்த எக்ஸாம் போகும்போது உங்களுக்கும் வந்து நிறைய கொஸ்டின்ஸ் பார்ப்பீங்க, நிறைய டவுட்ஸ் வரும். ஸோ தட் யூ கேன் கெட் இட் கிளாரிஃபைட் ஹியர்.
ஓகே, தேங்க்யூ சார்.
இந்த பிரைவேட் கிளவுட் சொல்லியிருந்தீங்களா சார்?
ஆமா சக்தி.
ஹலோ,
சொல்லுங்க சக்தி, கேக்குது.
ஆமா சார். இப்போ அதுல பாத்தீங்கன்னா இப்ப நம்ம இந்த ஓபன் ஸ்டாக்ல பாத்தீங்கன்னா ஒரு லிமிட் ஃபர்ஸ்ட் ரிலீஸ் பண்ணும்போது ஒரு 9 காம்பனன்ட்ஸ் கிட்ட ரிலீஸ் பண்ணியிருந்தாங்க. ஸோ அதுக்கப்புறம் 1 by 1 அதை ஆட் பண்ணிக்கிட்டே இருந்தாங்க. ஸோ அதே மாதிரி இந்த ஓபன் ஸ்டாக்லயே வந்து லாட் ஆஃப் வெர்ஷன்ஸ் இப்போ அப்டேட் பண்ணிக்கிட்டே இருக்காங்க. அது மாதிரி Azure ஸ்டாக்ல வந்து அது மாதிரி வெர்ஷன்ஸ் இருக்கா, இல்ல தட் மீன்ஸ் ஏதாவது ஒரு டைம் பீரியட்ல வந்து அப்டேட் பண்ணிக்கிட்டே இருக்கிறாங்களா சார் ஓபன் ஸ்டாக், சாரி அஜூர் ஸ்டாக்?
ஓகே, இப்போ நீங்க வந்து ஓப்பன் ஸ்டாக்கை பொறுத்த வரைக்கும் நீங்க அந்த கேரக்டரிஸ்டிக்ஸ்லாம் வந்து தனித்தனி காம்பனண்டா கொடுக்குறாங்க. இப்போ நீங்க என்ன சொல்ல வரீங்க அப்படின்னா இப்போ அவங்க வந்து இந்த ஹாரிசான், ஸ்விஃப்ட், நோவா, நியூட்ரான் அந்த மாதிரி வந்து பாத்தீங்கன்னா ஒரு ப்ராடக்ட் ஆக்சுவலா. இப்போ அந்த ப்ராடக்ட் தான் வந்து இங்க நம்ம வந்து இங்க சொன்னோம். இப்போ எக்ஸாம்பிளுக்கு இப்போ மீட்டரிங் எடுத்துக்கிட்டோம் அப்படின்னா இந்த ஹீட்டோ இல்ல சீலோ மீட்டர் அந்த மாதிரிலாம் ப்ராடக்ட் இருக்கு. ஸோ அதை வச்சு நம்ம என்ன பண்ணலாம், டேஷ்போர்ட் கிரியேட் பண்ணலாம், மானிட்டரிங் பண்ணலாம், டெலிமெட்ரிஸ்லாம் எடுக்கலாம். ஸோ இது எல்லாம் வந்து பாத்தீங்கன்னா ஒரு ப்ராடக்ட், ஒரு கேரக்டரிஸ்டிக்ஸ்க்கும் ஓப்பன் ஸ்டாக்ல ஒரு ப்ராடக்ட் இருக்கு. ஓகே, ஸோ அதே மாதிரி மைக்ரோசாஃப்ட் அஜூர்லயும் இந்த மெக்கானிசம் கொடுக்கறதுக்கு அவங்களும் ஒரு ப்ராடக்ட் வச்சிருக்காங்க. அந்த ப்ராடக்ட் என்ன பண்ணுவாங்க அப்படின்னா உங்களுக்கு வந்து அந்த ஹார்ட்வேர்ல ரெடிமேடா லோட் பண்ணி கொடுத்துருவாங்க அஜூர் ஸ்டாக்ல. ஸோ நீங்க வந்து 1 by 1 லோட் பண்ண தேவையில்லை. ஓப்பன் ஸ்டாக்ல நம்ம போயிட்டு காம்பனன்ட் எனேபிள் பண்ற மாதிரி, இன்ஸ்டால் பண்ற மாதிரி தனித்தனியா நம்ம லோட் பண்ண தேவையில்லை. அவுட் போஸ்டும் சரி, AWS உடைய பிரைவேட் கிளவுடும் சரி, அஜூரோட ஸ்டாக்கும் வந்து நம்ம ரெடிமேட் ப்ராடக்டா கொடுத்துருவாங்க. வேற ஓப்பன் ஸ்டாக்கும் அந்த ஹீலியான், விரியலே ஸ்வீட் அதெல்லாம் எப்படின்னா நம்ம வந்து தனித்தனியா இன்ஸ்டால் பண்ணலாம். இப்போ வந்து ஹீலியான் எடுத்துக்கிட்டீங்க அப்படின்னா ஹெச்பியோட ஓஓ ஆபரேஷன் ஆர்கஸ்ட்ரேட்டரோ இல்ல ஹெச்பியோட சிஎஸ்ஏவோ அதெல்லாம் வந்து தனித்தனியா இன்ஸ்டால் பண்ணலாம். ஸோ ஓப்பன் ஸ்டாக் அதே மாதிரி வந்து இது வந்து ஓப்பன் ஸ்டாக் பேரே ஓப்பன் ஸ்டாக்ல. ஸோ அதனால வந்து பாத்தீங்கன்னா நிறைய டிஃப்ரெண்ட் ப்ராஜெக்ட்ஸ், நிறைய கம்பெனி, நிறைய டிஃப்ரெண்ட் டீம் வந்து அதை டெவலப் பண்றாங்க. இனிஷியலா நீங்க சொன்ன மாதிரி முக்கியமா 9 மேஜர் சர்வீசஸ் தான் இருந்தது. ஸோ இந்த நம்ம லிஸ்ட் பண்ணிருக்கிறது கொஞ்சம் தான் லிஸ்ட் பண்ணிருக்கோம். ஐ திங்க் ஐ மிஸ்ட் ஸ்டோரேஜ் மிஸ் பண்ணேன், சிண்டர் மிஸ் பண்ணிட்டேன், கீ ஸ்டோன் மிஸ் பண்ணிட்டேன். இதுதான் மொத்தம் 9 நினைக்கிறேன். ஓகே, ஏதோ ஒன்று மிஸ் பண்றேன். ஃபைன், தட் இஸ் ஃபைன். எனக்கு இதுல இல்ல. பட் இந்த மாதிரி 9 காம்பனன்ட்ஸ்லாம் வந்து கிளான்ஸ் இருக்கு, கரெக்ட், இமேஜ் ஸ்டோர் இருக்கு. ஃபைன். ஸோ இதுதான் நம்ம வந்து இந்த காம்பனன்ட்ஸ்னு சொன்னோம், கேரக்டரிஸ்டிக்ஸ்னு சொன்னோம். இந்த 9 or 10 பாயிண்ட் சொன்னோம் இல்லைங்களா, அதுதான் நான் வந்து இது வந்து அவங்க ப்ராடக்டா கொடுக்குறாங்க ஓப்பன் ஸ்டாக்ல. இது ஆமா. ஸோ அஜூர்லயும் இருக்கு அதே மாதிரி. பட் என்னன்னா அது வந்து இட்ஸ் என்ன சொல்றது, ஒரு அப்ளையன்ஸ் அது. ஸோ அது வந்து நமக்கு தனித்தனியா அவங்க வந்து உங்களுக்கு லோட் பண்ண சொல்லல. அவங்க ப்ரீ லோடடா கொடுத்துருவாங்க உங்களுக்கு. அவங்க ஒரு சர்வர் ஹார்ட்வேர் வாங்கி அஷூர் ஸ்டாக்ன்றது வந்து ஒரு சர்வர் மாடல் நீங்க சூஸ் பண்ணீங்க அப்படின்னா அந்த மாடல்ல வந்து அவங்க லோட் பண்ணி உங்களுக்கு வந்து உங்க டேட்டா சென்டருக்கு அனுப்பிச்சு வச்சிருவாங்க. நீங்க வந்து அதை ஆன் பண்ணா போதும், டர்ன் கீ அப்ளையன்ஸ் மாதிரி.
ஓகே, அப்போ நான் இதுல ஓப்பன் ஸ்டாக்ல வந்து என்னோட தனி டேட்டா சென்டர்ல நான் கான்ஃபிகர் பண்ணிக்கலாம். பட் ஐ அம் கோயிங் டு அஜூர் ஸ்டாக்னா வந்து நான் அவங்கள்ட்ட இருந்தா ப்ராடக்ட் வந்து நான் வாங்குறேன் ஃபார் VM, தட் மீன்ஸ் ஹார்ட்வேர் ரிலேட்டட் திங்ஸ் எல்லாமே அசூர்ல இருந்து வாங்குறோம். அசூர்
ஆமா, ஆமா.
AWS.
ஆமா. See, இதுவே வந்து இப்ப உங்களுக்கு வந்து ஆன் ப்ரெமிசஸே எடுத்துக்கிட்டீங்க அப்படின்னா, ஈவன் வந்து உங்களுக்கு பிளாட்ஃபார்ம் 9 இருக்கு, இல்ல ரெட் ஹேட்டோடைய ஓப்பன் ஸ்டாக் இருக்கு. அவங்களே வந்து உங்களுக்கு ரெடிமேடா சூசேயோட ஓப்பன் ஸ்டாக் இருக்கு. அவங்க ரெடிமேடா உங்களுக்கு பண்டிலா கொடுக்குறாங்க. ஸோ ஈவன் ஐபிஎம் எடுத்துக்கிட்டீங்க அப்படின்னா, அவங்க ஐபிஎம்மோட சாஃப்ட் லேயர் இல்ல ஐபிஎம்மோடைய பிரைவேட் கிளவுட் ப்ராடக்ட் வந்து இட் இஸ் டெவலப்ட் ஃப்ரம் ஓப்பன் ஸ்டாக் தான். அது வந்து இப்ப ஐபிஎம் ரெட் ஹேட்ன்றது ஐபிஎம் கம்பெனி தானே ஆல்மோஸ்ட். அதனால ஸோ அந்த விஷயங்கள் எல்லாமே எடுத்து தான் அவங்க பண்றாங்க. ஸோ இப்போ அவங்க ஐபிஎம் உடைய சாஃப்ட் லேயரே வந்து ஃபார் எக்ஸாம்பிள் இப்போ கம்ப்யூட் அப்படின்னா இது நோவா தான் கம்ப்யூட் இல்ல. ஸோ அது மாதிரி கம்ப்யூட் தென் நீங்க சொன்னீங்க கிளான்ஸ் சொன்னீங்க. இப்போ இமேஜ் மேனேஜ்மெண்ட் இமேஜ் ஸ்டோர் வந்து அதுல இருந்து எடுத்துப்பாங்க. ஆப்ஜெக்ட் ஸ்டோரேஜ் வந்து ஸ்விஃப்ட். ஸோ இந்த மாதிரி வந்து பாத்தீங்கன்னா பப்ளிக் கிளவுட்ல இதே மாதிரி ஆஃபரிங் இருக்கு. இப்போ பப்ளிக் கிளவுட்ல எடுத்துக்கிட்டீங்கன்னா உங்களுக்கு இது தெரியும். உங்களுக்கு S3 வந்து AWSல அஷூர்ல வந்து பிளாக் இருக்கு. ஸோ இமேஜஸ்க்கும் அதே மாதிரி வந்து பார்த்தீங்கன்னா இமேஜ் டெம்ப்ளேட் ஸ்டோரேஜ் இருக்கு. ஸோ அந்த மாதிரி நிறைய ஆப்ஷன்ஸ் இருக்கு. சேம் கிட்டத்தட்ட எல்லாமே இருக்கு. பட் அதெல்லாம் ரெடிமேடா உங்களுக்கு வந்துடும்.
அதே ஆனா இப்ப அஷூர் ஓப்பன் ஸ்டாக்ல வந்து லிமிடெட் சர்வீசஸ் தான் கொடுப்போம், இல்ல வாட் எவர் சர்வீஸ் ஐ யூசிங் இன் பப்ளிக்
இல்ல இந்த கேரக்டரிஸ்டிக்ஸ் எல்லாமே வந்துரும். இந்த கேரக்டரிஸ்டிக்ஸ் எல்லாமே வந்துரும். ஸோ இந்த லிஸ்ட் பண்ணிருக்கோம்ல இது எல்லாம் வந்துரும்.
ஓகே. the major characteristics வந்து அவங்க கொடுத்துறோம். if you want to enable new feature அந்த டைம் நம்ம அவங்க திரும்பி ரெக்வெஸ்ட் பண்ணி இது பண்ணி if you need it.
இல்ல அது வந்து உங்களுக்கு அதான் இப்ப நம்ம முன்னாடி ஒரு क्वेश्चन கேட்டாங்கல்ல, இது வந்து உங்களுக்கு ஆன் பிரெமைசஸ்ன்றதால உங்களுக்கு வந்து இந்த இதுல மேக்ஸிமம் கேரக்டரிஸ்டிக்ஸ் நீங்க எனேபிள் பண்ணாதான் உங்களுக்கு பெட்டர். ஏன்னா வந்து யூ ஆர் மேக்கிங் ஃபுல் யூஸ் ஆஃப் த கிளவுட் கேரக்டரிஸ்டிக்ஸ். அதுல நீங்க ஒரு சில காம்பனண்ட்டை நீங்க எனேபிள் பண்ணல அப்படின்னா மேபி நீங்க ஆல்ரெடி வந்து எக்ஸாம்பிளுக்கு வந்து ஒரு ஃபைல் ஸ்டோரேஜுக்கு வந்து எங்கிட்ட வந்து நெட் ஆப் இருக்கு, நான் இந்த கிளவுடோடைய பண்டில் அதை நான் யூஸ் பண்ணல அப்படின்னா அது நீங்க வந்து ஸ்கிப் பண்ணலாம். அந்த மாதிரி சில விஷயங்கள் ஸ்கிப் பண்ணலாம். நான் அதனாலதான் இந்த இடத்துல வந்து அந்த ஃபைல் ஸ்டோரேஜை நான் மென்ஷன் பண்ணல. சரி, அது வந்து ஆப்ஷனல் காம்பனன்ட் அதெல்லாம். வேறஸ் வித்தவுட் இமேஜ் ஸ்டோர் ஆர் ஆப்ஜெக்ட் ஸ்டோரேஜ் இதெல்லாம் வந்து கீ கேரக்டரிஸ்டிக்ஸ். எல்லா கம்பெனிலுமே இது யூஸ் பண்ண ஆரம்பிச்சிட்டாங்க. இதெல்லாம் வந்து மோஸ்ட் காமன்லி யூஸ்ட். ஐடென்டி சர்வீசஸ் வந்து கண்டிப்பா வேணும், சீக்ரெட்ஸ் மேனேஜ்மெண்ட் கண்டிப்பா வேணும். ஸோ அந்த மாதிரி வந்து சில சர்வீசஸ் வந்து மேண்டேட்ரி அது. ஸோ அது வந்து இல்லாம நம்ம வந்து சொல்யூஷனிங்கே பண்ண முடியாது. ஸோ அது இருக்கும். அடிஷனல் சர்வீசஸ் வந்து ஆப்ஷனல் சர்வீசஸும் கொடுக்குறாங்க, அந்த ஃபைல் ஷேர்ஸ் அந்த மாதிரிலாம். ஓகே. So any other questions from anyone?
செக்யூரிட்டி தவிர செக்யூரிட்டி வந்து பிரைவேட் கிளவுட்ல பெஸ்டா இருக்கும். ஸோ அதர் தென் எதுக்காக நான் பிரைவேட் கிளவுட் வந்து சூஸ் பண்ணுவேன்?
பப்ளிக் கிளவுட்ல கம்பேட்டபிலிட்டி இல்லைன்னா சூஸ் பண்ணுவீங்க. ஓகே, ஃபார் எக்ஸாம்பிள் உங்க அப்ளிகேஷன் வந்து இன்னுமே ஓல்டு லெகசி ஓஎஸ்ல தான் ரன் ஆகுது, லெகசி அப்ளிகேஷன் பிளாட்ஃபார்ம்ல தான் ரன் ஆகுது, எனக்கு டேட்டா பேஸ் லைசன்சிங் வந்து ஆல்ரெடி நான் வாங்கிட்டேன், இன்னும் ஒரு 3 இயர்ஸ்க்கு லைசன்ஸ் என்கிட்ட இருக்கு, இல்ல வந்து ஆன் பிரைம்ல வந்து என்கிட்ட ஹார்ட்வேர் இருக்கு, அதுவே இன்னும் வந்து 3 இயர்ஸ் வாரண்டி இருக்கு அப்படின்னா தென் யூ வில் கண்டினியூ டு ரன் இன் யுவர் ஆன் பிரைமைசஸ் இன் யுவர் பிரைவேட் கிளவுட்.
ஓகே, அதர் தென் தேர் இஸ் நோ பெரிய
இருக்கு பாயிண்ட்ஸ் இருக்கு. பட் அகைன் ஃபார் நவ லெட்ஸ் நாட் கெட் டூ டீப். நம்ம வந்து நிறைய பாயிண்ட்ஸ் வந்து நம்ம டிஸ்கஸ் பண்ணுவோம் as we get into that discussion.
ஓகே
Stan, கார்த்திக் ஹியர் ஸ்டான்.
ஹாய் கார்த்திக், சொல்லுங்க.
ப்ரோ, எனக்கு இது ஓப்பன் ஸ்டாக் அப்படிங்கிற டேர்ம் வந்து இஸ் இட் கைண்ட் ஆஃப் ஓப்பன் சோர்ஸ் லைக் ஃப்ரீ ஃபார் யூஸ்ங்கிற மாதிரி இருக்குமா, இல்ல வந்துட்டு கம்பேர்ட் டு அஷ்யூர்?
இது இல்ல ஓப்பன் ஸ்டாக் அப்படின்னும் போதே இது வந்து ஓப்பன் கம்யூனிட்டியில வந்து பாத்தீங்கன்னா தனித்தனியா வந்து ப்ராஜெக்ட் டீம்ஸ் இருக்காங்க. அவங்க என்ன பண்ணுவாங்க அப்படின்னா இந்த டேஷ்போர்டை பெட்டர் ஆக்கிறதுக்கு வந்து புது வெர்ஷன் கொண்டு வருவாங்க. ஹாரிசான்ல புது வெர்ஷன் வரும். அதே மாதிரி ஆப்ஜெக்ட் ஸ்டோரேஜ்ல வந்து நிறைய புது ஃபீச்சர்ஸ், என்கிரிப்ஷன் வந்து பெட்டரா ஆக்குறது, இல்ல வந்து ஸ்டாண்டர்ட்ஸ் வந்து பெட்டர் ஆக்குறது, அந்த மாதிரி வந்து தனித்தனியா வந்து ப்ராஜெக்ட் டீம்ஸ் இருக்காங்க. அது வந்து ஒரு ஓப்பன் கம்யூனிட்டி ப்ராடக்ட். இப்ப எல்லா கஸ்டமராலும் வந்து பாத்தீங்கன்னா அஷூர் ஸ்டாக்கோ இல்ல வந்து VMware உடைய லைசன்சிங் வாங்கி அவங்க வந்து இம்ப்ளிமெண்ட் பண்ண முடியாது. ஏன்னா அதெல்லாம் ரொம்ப ஹை காஸ்ட் விஷயம். நிறைய வந்து பாத்தீங்கன்னா VMware உடைய லைசன்சிங் வந்து இப்ப கொஞ்சம் பரவாயில்ல. பட் பிஃபோர் அக்வசிஷன் அது வந்து பாத்தீங்கன்னா கொஞ்சம் லைசன்சிங் காஸ்ட் ஹெவியா இருக்கும். நீங்க ஆனா நல்லா இருக்கும், ப்ராடக்ட் நல்லா இருக்கும், சர்வீசஸ் நல்லா இருக்கும், ஆஃபரிங்லாம் நல்லா இருக்கும், புது ஃபீச்சர்ஸ் எல்லாமே கிடைக்கும். பட் காசு இல்லாதவங்க, பட்ஜெட் இல்லாதவங்க என்ன பண்ணுவாங்க அப்படின்னா இந்த ஓப்பன் ஸ்டாக் பிளாட்ஃபார்ம் வந்து இம்ப்ளிமெண்ட் பண்ணுவாங்க. அவங்களுக்கு பிரைவேட் கிளவுட் வேணும், கிளவுடோட கேரக்டரிஸ்டிக்ஸ்லாம் வேணும், அதை எப்படி நம்ம இன் ஹவுஸா பண்ணலாம் அப்படின்ற மாதிரி சில கஸ்டமர்கிட்ட வந்து பட்ஜெட் இருக்கும், டெவலப்மெண்ட் பட்ஜெட் இருக்கும். வேறஸ் வந்து அந்த லைசன்சிங் வாங்கி அந்த கான்ட்ராக்ட் ரிலேஷன்ஷிப் மேனேஜ் பண்ற அளவுக்கு பட்ஜெட் இருக்காது. ஸோ அப்போ என்ன பண்ணுவாங்க அப்படின்னா இன் ஹவுஸ்ல ஒரு டீம் ஃபார்ம் பண்ணி இந்த ஓப்பன் ஸ்டாக் ப்ராடக்ட்லாம் இன்ஸ்டால் பண்ணுவோம். நம்ம வந்து டேஷ்போர்டிங், ஆப்ஜெக்ட் ஸ்டோரேஜ், ஐடென்டி மேனேஜ்மெண்ட்லாம் நம்ம டெப்ளாய் பண்ணி யூஸ் பண்ணலாம்னு கொஞ்சம் கொஞ்சமா தான் ஸ்டார்ட் பண்ணுவாங்க. ஸோ தே வில் ஸ்டார்ட் வித் ஃபியூ சர்வீசஸ் அண்ட் தென் தே வில் எக்ஸ்பேண்ட்.
ஓகே, காட் இட். தேங்க்ஸ்
இப்போ இந்த சர்வீஸ் பத்தி நம்ம ஒண்ணு படிக்கணுமா கோயிங் ஃபார்வர்ட் நம்மளோட கிளாஸ்ல?
பப்ளிக் கிளவுட் அஷூர் படிப்போங்க. ஓப்பன் ஸ்டாக் நான் தனியாகவும் செஷனாகவும் இருக்கு நம்ம கிட்ட. ஓகே, ஸோ அது தனி. இது வந்து நம்ம பப்ளிக் கிளவுட்ல வந்து அஷூர் வந்து இட்ஸ் ஆஃபரிங். அது வந்து பார்த்தீங்கன்னா இட்ஸ் ரெடிலி அவைலபிள். இது நம்ம வந்து தனித்தனியாக டிப்ளாய் பண்ணணும்னு கிடையாது. பட் நம்ம வந்து கோர் ஐடி கான்செப்ட்லாம் தனித்தனியாக படிப்போம். கம்ப்யூட், நெட்வொர்க், அந்த சிலபஸ் நான் உங்களுக்கு ஷேர் பண்ணியிருந்தேன் இல்லைங்களா, அது வந்து வில் கோ இன் டு கோர் விஷயம்லாம் நம்ம இன்டெப்தா போவோம். ஆமா, இங்க பாருங்க, இதுல வந்து இந்த சிலபஸ்ல கவனிச்சிங்க அப்படின்னா இதுல எல்லாமே வந்து சில இடத்துல வந்து டீன்னு யூஸ் பண்ணியிருப்பேன். அது வந்து தியரிட்டிக்கல் செஷன். ஸோ ஒரு இடத்துல வந்து பிராக்கெட்ல வந்து எங்க போச்சு பீன்ற வேர்டு யூஸ் பண்ணியிருப்பேன். அப்படின்னா அது ப்ராக்டிக்கல். ஸோ தியரியும் இருக்கு, ப்ராக்டிக்கல் லேபும் இருக்கு. இப்போ இந்த வாரம் மட்டும்தான் வந்து எல்லாமே தியரி. ஸோ நெக்ஸ்ட் வந்து உங்களுக்கு அந்த அஷூரோட ஃபண்டமெண்டல்ஸ் முடிஞ்சிச்சுன்னா எல்லா டாபிக்குமே வந்து ப்ராக்டிக்கல் டாபிக் தான்.
இப்போ பிராக்டிகலுக்கு நமக்கு என்னெல்லாம் ப்ரீ ரிக்வெஸ்டா என்ன இருக்கணும்ன்ற நம்மளோட சிஸ்டம்ல என்ன இருக்கணும்ன்ற முன்னாடி
இல்லங்க, இது எல்லாமே நம்ம இன்டர்நெட் வெப் வழியா தான் கனெக்ட் பண்ணி நம்ம பிராக்டிஸ் பண்ண போறோம். அதை நம்ம இது பண்ணலாம்.
ஓகே
ஜஸ்ட் ஒன் மினிட், ஒரு இந்த கால் மட்டும் அட்டெண்ட் பண்ணிக்கிறேன். சாரி, 1 செகண்ட். Sorry for that. So I got some courier to receive. Okay, sorry.
ஒரே 2 டவுட்ஸ் சார். இப்போ அந்த ப்ரீ அக்சஸ் அக்கவுண்ட் ஓபன் பண்ண சார், நான் ஆல்ரெடி யூஸ் பண்ணிட்டேன். 2 அக்கவுண்ட்ஸ் முடிஞ்சிருச்சு. பட் திரும்பி கிரியேட் பண்ணா யூ ஆர் நாட் எலிஜிபிள் ஃபார் கிரியேட்டிங் நியூ அக்கவுண்ட்னு வருது. சோ அதுக்கு என்ன, நானே 2-3
ஓகே, நம்ம ட்ரை பண்ணி பார்ப்போம். நீங்க இது மேபி வந்து அந்த அவங்க வந்து என்ன பண்ணுவாங்க அப்படின்னா அவங்களுடைய டேட்டா பேஸ்ல வந்து இமெயில் அட்ரஸ், ஃபோன் நம்பர் அண்ட் அந்த டெபிட் கார்டு யூஸ் பண்றீங்கல்ல, அந்த கார்டுடைய டீடைல்ஸ் வந்து 2 to 3 years வந்து அவங்க டேட்டா பேஸ்ல இருக்கும். அதை ரீயூஸ் பண்ண அலோ பண்ண மாட்டாங்க. ஓகே, ஸோ சம்டைம்ஸ் வந்து பாத்தீங்கன்னா இஃப் யூ ஆர் லக்கி எனஃப் அந்த சில கிரெடிட் கார்டில் மல்டிபிள் அக்கௌண்ட் கிரியேட் பண்ணலாம், சில டெபிட் கார்டில் மல்டிபிள் அக்கௌண்ட் கிரியேட் பண்ண அலோ பண்ணுவாங்க. அது வந்து கேஸ் டு கேஸ் அது வந்து ஒர்க் அவுட் ஆகுது. பட் நம்ம ட்ரை பண்ணி பார்ப்போம். உங்களை அந்த அக்கௌண்ட் கிரியேஷன் வந்து நெக்ஸ்ட் வீக் பண்ணுவோம், நெக்ஸ்ட் சண்டே பண்ணுவோம். அப்போ வந்து வில் ட்ரை இட் அவுட்.
ஓகே சார். அப்புறம் சார், இப்போ நம்ம இதுல டிஎக்ஸ்ல எம்எஸ்டிஎன் கொடுத்திருந்தாங்கல்ல சார், இப்போ ஆனா அது
ஃபைன், அது நம்ம தனியா டிஸ்கஸ் பண்ணலாம். ஓகே, இது இப்போ வேண்டாம். ஓகே
சார், நீங்க ஒரு ஃபோல்டர் ஒன்று ஷேர் பண்ணீங்க சார், டிரைவ். அதுல அந்த இது ஃபோல்டர் எம்டி ஆகுது.
எனக்கு இல்ல அதுல வந்து இப்போதைக்கு செஷன் நோட்ஸ் மட்டும் தான் அப்லோட் பண்ணிருக்கேன். நேத்தோட செஷன் நோட்ஸ் மட்டும் தான் அப்லோட் பண்ணிருக்கேன். மற்ற லேப்ஸ் அந்த டம்ப்ஸ் அது எல்லாமே இப்போ வந்து உங்களுக்கு அப்லோட் பண்ணுவேன் நான். வெறும் நீங்க செஷன் நோட்ஸ் ஃபோல்டர் போய் பாத்தீங்கன்னா அதுல ஒரு இந்த ஃபர்ஸ்ட் டேவோட இது இருக்கும், செஷன் நோட்ஸ் இருக்கும்.
ஓகே சார்.
ஆமா. ஓகே தென். ஸோ மற்ற கொஸ்டின்ஸை வந்து பார்க் பண்ணி வைங்க. நெக்ஸ்ட் சாட்டர்டே சண்டே வந்து அகைன் இன்ட்ரோடக்ஷன் தான், நம்ம அஷூரோட இன்ட்ரோடக்ஷன்ல தான் இருப்போம். ஸோ நெக்ஸ்ட் வீக் நம்ம வில் கண்டினியூ. தேங்க்யூ ஆல் ஃபார் ஜாயினிங் டுடே.